Weinglas heute mal. Ne? Da kommt noch ein Weinglas. Hier ja auch mal. Perfekt. So. Prost auf den Roland, der das Bierchen gespendet hat. Wir sind etwas früher als eigentlich geplant, aber doch halbwegs in der Zeit. Und da können wir auch die Einleitung ein bisschen machen heute. Ich sage erstmal Hallo in die Runde und Seven Vampire eröffnet gleich mit einem Einhorn für 1,49. Seven Vampire, vielen Dank. Very appreciated in hard times. Wir gehen gerade mal rüber in den Stream und ihr könnt sehen, es sind noch 12 Minuten, bis es soweit ist. Das heißt, wir haben noch ein bisschen Zeit, um die Vorbereitung zu treffen und auch den ein oder anderen Disclaimer noch bekannt zu geben. Also, um es klarzustellen, ich sabbel zwischendrin auch mal, aber ich werde den Elon, falls er was zu sagen hat, natürlich zu Wort kommen lassen. Ich werde auch den einen oder anderen infantilen Witz heute Abend machen. Wer das nicht mag, den bitte ich an der Stelle abzuschalten. Ich habe jetzt leider den Peter Lustig nicht vorbereitet. Es gibt heute auch kein Gewinnspiel. Also an alle Gewinngeierer von euch, die am leichtesten Gewinnspiel im Internet weltweit teilnehmen möchten, heute leider vertane Chance, es gibt kein Gewinnspiel. Dafür möchte ich aber hier mal Vorwürfe adressieren, die darauf gerichtet sind, wir Elektroautofahrer. Achso, ich sollte vielleicht auch das Mikro mal runternehmen. So, jetzt hört er mich auch wieder besser. Mikro, ja, ist ja gut. Ich hoffe, ihr hört mich jetzt. Und habt ihr alles andere gehört? Ich hoffe mal. Ja, das fängt ja wieder super an. Also ich möchte noch Vorwürfe adressieren, die da lauten, dass wir Elektroautofahrer Elon und Tesla Fanboys wären. Ich weise diese Kritik knallhart zurück und ich bin mir absolut sicher, dass da alle mir zustimmen. Ja, jetzt schreien alle Mikro, ich hab's doch schon, da ist es doch. Jetzt müsst ihr mich doch hören. Also, um das klarzustellen, wir sind absolut kritisch gegenüber Tesla, absolut kritisch gegenüber Elon Musk. Und jetzt werde ich auch den Stuhl umdrehen. Ich habe da was vorbereitet. Einen Augenblick, das machen wir gerade. Wehe, es guckt mir jemand auf den Hintern. Dann gibt's Ärger. So. Na. Eins haben wir schon mal. So. Ich hoffe, man kann es erkennen. 2. 3 und 4. Wunderbar. Da haben wir das. So, damit wir auch die richtige Stimmung haben, ne? Wie gesagt, uns wird ja immer vorgeworfen, wir wären Elon-hörig und wir würden unkritisch allem gegenüberstehen, was der Elon so von sich gibt. Oh, ich sehe gerade, Neuzeitler lässt 5,99 springen. Vielen Dank. Ohne Gewinnspiel bin ich wieder raus. Ach komm, Mensch, Martin. Du hast doch ein T-Shirt gekriegt. Zifix, das kann doch nicht sein. Okay, also ich gehe mal davon aus, der Martin bleibt da. Und okay, es ist jetzt immer noch die richtige Stimmung. Ich weiß nicht, komm, wir machen das anders. Wir gucken mal, wie das ist. Wenn ich mal hier das Licht ausmache. Wie ist das? Ist doch schon ein bisschen romantisch, oder? Also ich finde, das ist jetzt dem Anlass entsprechend angemessen. Und der Friedrich schreibt gerade, stehen 4 Teelichter auf dem Stuhl. Es gibt aber kein Gewinnspiel, Friedrich. Und ich denke mal, aber irgendwas fehlt noch, oder? Habt ihr auch den Eindruck, da müsste noch was dazu, um den Ganzen den richtigen Glanz zu verleihen? Ich hab's. Der offizielle Elon Musk Schrein. Wir huldigen heute alle unserem erhabenen Nummer 2, der mir natürlich untergeordnet ist, unserem lieben Elon. Ich habe hier also extra ein Altar mal aufgebaut, damit wir seiner Gottheit, seiner Erhabenheit auch gerecht werden heute Abend. Und wehe, er enttäuscht uns. Dann ist hier aber die Hölle los, mein Freund. Dann kenne ich nichts mehr. Dann gibt's... jetzt geht der Stuhl wieder runter. Ich werde wahnsinnig. Nichts klappt heute. Der Fernseher braucht ewig, bis er angeht. So macht er mir die ganze Pointe kaputt, weil das Timing nicht stimmt. Mann, 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 Mann. Okay, jetzt begrüße ich aber erstmal euch alle im Stream. Also den Martin hatten wir ja schon. Licker ist da, Heini ist da, Bruno, Nordisch by Nature, Stefan, Gattomania, Otto habe ich schon gesehen, glaube ich, Isolman, Bossi, Markus, Stefan, Ex-Westfale, Andreas, Hucki, RZZ, Philipp, Völkeller, Nordisch hatten wir schon, Fred, Jens Eike ist auch da, der hat mir alkoholfreies Bier spendiert, aber heute habe ich mal ein C. von dem lieben Roland mir eingeschenkt. Erstmal Prost auf diesen hoffentlich großen Abend 2020, wo wir den nächsten Schritt in die Elektromobilität hoffentlich gehen. Ah, ist das nicht schön, Leute? Wie hier der Elon Musk auf uns praktisch schaut und schaut, dass es uns gut geht und wir alle begeistert sind. Und ist er nicht auch attraktiv, oder? Der hat sich, glaube ich, auch Haare implantieren lassen. Ne? Bin auch schon am Überlegen, ob das eine Option für mich wäre, statt Taycan vielleicht ein Haarimplantat. Was meint ihr? Und aus gegebenem Anlass zur Feier des Tages gibt es heute tatsächlich kein Cola, Bier, sondern wir kippen Orangen. Nein, heute trinke ich mal pur. Ich habe heute also nichts vorbereitet, das hebe ich mir wieder für den Ben Spätschoppen auf. Sehe ich gerade, ihr habt heute die Spendierhosen an, so wie das aussieht. Der Faku oder auch, Moment, der Schlaffael hat 3,49 € springen lassen. Meinen Namen spricht man mit K am Ende. Schlaffael K, entschuldige. Schlaffael K hat 3,49 € springen lassen. Vielen Dank, Schlaffael K. Und der Albin hat 3,21 € springen lassen, weil wir beim Fahren sparen. Guten Abend. Albin, vielen Dank. Very appreciated in the hard times. Ich hoffe, der Schlaffael mit K ist auch zufrieden, dass ich seinen Namen jetzt richtig ausgesprochen habe. Ich schaue jetzt erstmal, was ihr so schreibt. Wenn das Teelicht das silbt, schmilzt er dir ein Loch in den Stuhl. Mein lieber... Moment, wo war's? Liquor 666. Unter diesen Teelichtern befindet sich ein Teller. Ich werde auch zwischendrin immer mal schauen, ob der warm wird. Vielleicht legen wir noch was unter den Teller. Das macht vielleicht Sinn. Ich lege schnell noch was unter den Teller. Moment. Was nehmen wir da noch drunter? Ein Stück Papier? Ja, genau. So. So. Aber der Teller ist auch noch relativ kühl. Achso. So. Aber ich möchte hier nochmal betonen, ne? Es gibt keine, um es ganz klar zu sagen, keine Bevorzugung vom Elon, dass wir dem jetzt irgendwie hörig wären oder so, dass das unser Sektenführer ist. Ich habe nur zufällig halt ein paar Fotos von ihm gefunden und dachte mir, die blende ich heute Abend einfach mal ein. So, jetzt sehe ich gerade, McGensel hat 2 € und ein Hi-You springen lassen. Thank you very much. Jetzt geht's schon wieder los, obwohl ich hier heute reines C-Bier trinke. Unfassbar. Weil du heute mal kein Bier gepuncht hast, Andi mit E mit 2 €, vielen Dank dafür. Suche E-Fahrer aus dem Saarland für Aktion am Donnerstagabend. Gerne melden, wenn ihr Lust habt, euer Auto in Homburg zu zeigen. CJ, vielleicht machen wir es so, schreibt eine E-Mail an reporter@breaking-elektro-news.de und CJ schreibt mir auch eine Mail und wenn da was reingeht, leite ich das an den CJ weiter. Wenn ihr mir also eine E-Mail mit Bezug darauf schickt, dann schicke ich das an den CJ. Das waren 5 €. Thank you very much, very appreciated. Don Carlos ist da, wobei Don und Carlos sind 2 einzelne Namen seiner Katzen. 3,49 und Daumen hoch, Smile, ich komme ja gar nicht hinterher. Thank you very much. Dann, oh Gott, was ist denn hier los? Der Udo lässt 10,99 springen, 360 Zuschauer, nur 35 Daumen hoch, schade. Udo, thank you very much. Was ist denn los mit euch? Habt ihr irgendwie eine Gehaltserhöhung gekriegt? Der Elektro-Fan-Key hat 5,55 € springen lassen für einen Kaffee zum Wachbleiben. Thank you very much, very appreciated. So, jetzt hoffe ich aber, dass ich auch noch ein paar Kommentare lesen kann. Auch zur Info für euch. Wir verpassen nicht. Ich habe den Countdown hier mitlaufen. Mal sehen. Kann ich das vielleicht auch groß stellen? Ach, jetzt habe ich das falsche Fenster. Moment. Wir gucken mal, ob ich das groß stellen kann. F11. Ja, ist doch noch schöner. Soll ich mich noch ein bisschen kleiner machen? Wir machen mich noch ein bisschen kleiner. So, perfekt. Besser kann es doch gar nicht sein. So, wir haben umgeschaltet. So, und für meine Fehler gleich wieder am Anfang. Ach nein, das ist das Falsche. Und wo habe ich es denn da? Ich habe manchmal ein Brett vorm Kopf, ne? So, wenn das... Ah, da waren wir schon, genau. Und leg noch was unter die Unterlage. Haha, Frankenmichel. Schöner Knicks, danke Bossi. Jahrelang geübt. Ich war ja auch mal Messdiener, bis ich 13 war. Dann habe ich gesagt, überzeugt mich alles nicht und bin dann nicht mehr in die Kirche gegangen. Gab auch Ärger mit meinen Eltern, aber irgendwann haben sie es akzeptiert, dass ich halt ein oller Knotzkopf bin. Und wenn ich von was nicht überzeugt bin, dann mache ich das einfach nicht. So, seid ihr alle schon long in Tesla-Aktien? Ich nicht. Ich habe ja die Chance verpasst, lieber Jakob. Aber wir machen hier auch keine Aktienshow. Obwohl wir natürlich mit diesem Tesla-Schrein, ne? Extra für unseren Tesla-Chef. Oh, ist er nicht süß, der Elon? machen wir ja ein bisschen Werbung für die Tesla-Aktie. Also ich gehe mal davon aus, durch diesen Stream sind da auf jeden Fall 50% plus im Aktienkurs drin. Okay, wo ist der Wechselrichter im Keller, Stefan? Das Video habe ich auch schon angefangen zu schneiden. Das kommt hoffentlich bald. Wann fängt der Burlesque-Tanz an? Coaster Couch. Ich hätte ja heute auch schon einen Burlesque-Tanz aufführen lassen von der Chantal, aber die hat sich ja den Fuß verstaucht und ist nicht wieder ganz fit. Sie macht schon wieder leichtes Training. Also am Sonntag ist sie auf jeden Fall wieder auf dem Damm und wird auch endlich den Burlesque-Tanz aufführen. Ihr könnt euch also freuen. Wir werden es aber diesmal so machen, dass sie wirklich nach der Auflösung des Gewinnspiels auftritt. Denn den Druck, den ihr da am letzten Sonntag gemacht habt, der führt ja zu nichts Gutes. Wir haben es gesehen, sie hat sich den Knöchel verstaucht. Also da nochmal ein Du an den What's to the Wheels, der ja hauptverantwortlich war. So, noch 4 Minuten. Es sind noch laut dem Fenster 1 Minute und 47 Sekunden. Also ich habe es hier offen, ich habe es direkt vor der Nase. Wir verpassen also nichts. Das war Ironie, sagt der Jakob. Was war denn Ironie? Keine Ahnung. Wärmepumpe, 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 schreibt der Tug. Ich will eine Wärmepumpe, ich auch, aber Stück für Stück. Jetzt haben wir erstmal den Wechselrichter. Also, und der Martin hängt noch in alten Denkmustern fest. Er schreibt, Chantal hat rüber gemacht in eine Zone. Alle Daumen bitte hoch. Jawohl, für den Elon, für unseren Elon-Schrein. Elon, wir glauben an dich, aber ich möchte klar sagen, wir sind keine Tesla- oder Elon-Fanboys. Wir sind brutal kritisch. Mir wird ja oft vorgeworfen, ich sei auch ein VW-Fanboy und sei VW gegenüber zu unkritisch. Kann ich gar nicht verstehen. Ich dachte immer, ich wäre kritisch. Und genauso ist es ja auch mit Elon Musk und Tesla. Also, nur weil ich jetzt hier einen Schrein aufgebaut habe, bin ich doch nicht unkritisch. Oh, Frank Mücke hat abonniert. Ach so, hätte ich fast vergessen. Wir haben noch 50 Sekunden, da kann ich schnell noch hier die Warnmitteilung von YouTube vorlesen. Warnhinweis. Das Betrachten dieses Streams ohne Abo kann zu Hautreizungen, Herzflimmern und Halluzinationen führen. YouTube weist ausdrücklich darauf hin, dass das Abonnieren des Kanals Michael Schmidt und Michael Schmidt Live dringend angeraten wird. Ohne Abo kein Weltfrieden. Hier, original von YouTube. Zu Risiken und Nebenwirkungen fragen Sie einen Arzt oder Apotheker. Gibt's auch wieder Leute, die denken, ich habe mir das ausgedacht. Da steht's doch. Original von YouTube. So, noch 23 Sekunden. Ich schalte jetzt schon mal um. Und sehe gerade, der Neuzeitler ist noch da. Er ist nicht gegangen, hat 11 Euro springen lassen. ID3-Probefahrt war echt super, besser als gedacht. Freut mich, dass dir das gefallen hat. Wir blenden aber natürlich auch noch die Schlappen ein. Oh, falsch. Halt. Oh, beinahe verpasst hier. Schlappen. Moment, die machen wir oben links. Huh? Die Schlappen müssen dabei sein. Die mache ich mal ziemlich klein ins Eck. Aber da kann man ja dann auch Reaktionen noch entsprechend sehen. Ne? Oh, ich muss hier auf Play drücken. Da geht's los. Moment, haben wir keinen Ton? Hört ihr was? Es gibt scheinbar noch keinen Ton. Moment mal. Ich gehe hier mal in den normalen Modus. Live. Habt ihr Ton im Stream? Ich habe keinen Ton. Moment, ich habe noch eine Alternative. Haben wir hier vielleicht den Stream auch? Nee. Dann gehe ich jetzt nochmal direkt auf YouTube. Moment. Was ist denn hier los? Da ist auch kein Ton. Habt ihr einen Ton? Leute, sagt mal, ob ihr einen Ton habt, bitte. Ich mache jetzt erstmal Musik drunter, damit wir ein bisschen Ton haben. Tesla hat keinen Ton. Okay, es gibt noch keinen Ton. Dann machen wir Musik dazu. Seht ihr ja aber gar nicht. Was ist denn hier los? Warum seht ihr denn jetzt hier ein stehendes Bild? Moment. Machen wir ganz anders. So. Okay. Machen wir jetzt so. Muss ich die Logitech Cam noch einblenden. Die Microsoft Cam. Machen wir noch groß. Ich hab Bild. Das war ein technisches Problem. Das ist jetzt voll live. Und wir können die Musik auch noch ein bisschen leiser machen. Nee, aber dann wird das auch leiser. Nein, wollen ja mitkriegen, wenn hier ein Ton kommt. Ne? Ich synchronisiere so lange oben drüber weg. Sehe auch gerade, Moment, ich habe was verpasst. Der Schmiddi hat 3 Euro springen lassen. Vielen Dank, Schmiddi. Und der Schlaffael mit K schreibt, damit ich das nicht bei Burger King ausgebe. 16,99 Euro, lieber Schlaffael. Very großzügig from you. Very appreciated in hard times. Wir haben immer noch keinen Ton. Wir sehen hier also 2 wichtige Mitarbeiter, die gerade einen roten Knopf gedrückt haben. Hier eine Tesla Model 3 Fahrerin, die den Mode für Haustiere aktiviert hat, damit die beiden süßen Katzen hier auch auf jeden Fall bei 70 Grad Fahrenheit den Aufenthalt im Model 3 genießen können. Und niemand die Scheibe einschlägt. Oh nein, es sind gar keine Katzen, es sind Hamster. Solange da eh nichts läuft. Oh, jetzt ist er gegen die Kamera gelaufen. Ah, jetzt kommt wieder die Tierhalterin, die verantwortungsvolle, und schaltet den Modus aus und lässt sich einparken. Nee, aber das ist ja jetzt nicht mehr die gleiche, oder? Ist das noch die gleiche? Warum parkt sie denn jetzt ein? Die hatte doch gerade schon geparkt. Da ist jetzt irgendwas unlogisch. Ich kann gerade nicht folgen. Was ist denn da los? Starte das Video erst einmal. Ich hab's ja an. Das hing an OBS. Ah, jetzt ja, schreibt Nordisch by Nature. So sieht's aus. Model X fährt an eine Tesla-Ladestation, auch Supercharger genannt. Wie aufregend. Jetzt stelle ich mir halt die Frage, jetzt ist ja fast mein Elon-Schrein interessanter als das, was jetzt hier läuft. Ihr könnt also auch Spiele im Model 3 spielen. Und wie grafisch aufwendig die sind, das sehen wir hier an dem Beispiel. Toller Zeitvertreib. Tja, da würde ich lieber meine YouTube-Videos gucken. Das geht nämlich auch im Stand mit dem Tesla Model 3. So, Prost. Weit über 100.000 Zuschauer hat Tesla. Mal gucken. Tatsächlich. Und ich habe nur 500. Das ist eine riesige Ungerechtigkeit. Warum gucken die denn nicht bei mir? Und warum hat's hier keinen Ton? Habt ihr Ton? Also das ist doch wieder mal... Ich weiß nicht, was hier los ist. So, jetzt haben wir einen... Ach, der Rennspiele im Tesla spielt. Noch ein Model 3, was einparkt. Nee, zum Laden fährt. Ja, ich trinke mir derweil mal ein. Prost auf den Battery Day. Kein Ton. Also bei mir hat es sowas noch nie gegeben, solche technischen Probleme. Solange schauen wir auf den Tesla, auf den Elon Musk Schrein. Und wehe, es gibt heute keine sensationellen Nachrichten. Dann fackel ich den Schrein ab im Hintergrund. Ja, und sonst so, wie war euer Tag, während hier ein weiterer Tesla durchs Bild läuft? Das ist übrigens altes Videomaterial. Das konnte man auf der Internetseite von Tesla schon ewig sehen. Soll ich der lang was singen, während wir hier darauf warten, dass ein Ton zugeschaltet wird? Ich kann ja nicht alles drüber quatschen. Oliver Krüger hat über 10% Zuschauer, schreibt der Martin. Was heißt denn 10%? 10% von was? Von 141.000, dann hat er 14.000 Zuschauer. Der Oliver wischt also mit mir mal wieder den Fußboden auf. Ich bringe hier einen energetischen, enthusiastischen Stream mit Original Elon Musk Schrein und ihr guckt beim Oliver Krüger. Ich bin entsetzt. Wo bleibt der Ton, wird gefragt. Ich kann es nicht sagen. Hier, seht ihr das? Jawohl, ihr seht das. Der Ton ist voll aufgedreht. Da ist nichts. Kein Bild, kein Ton, wir kommen schon, schreibt der Stefan Klingdor. Dirk Himmelmann schreibt, Ton kommt Ende 2020 over the air. Ehemaliger Tesla-Fahrer, heute Audi-Fahrer und auch sehr begeistert davon und auch immer Tesla-kritisch. Ich nehme mal an, der Dirk hat zu Hause keinen eigenen Elon Musk-Schrein. Kann das sein, Dirk? Jetzt geht's los, oder? Mal gucken. Och, was bin ich aufgeregt. Ach, es ist alles so aufregend, Leute. Ja, wo laufen sie denn? Das ist übrigens ein Didi Hallervorden-Sketch aus Nonstop Nonsense. Ach, wo laufen sie denn? Nee, oder war das... Nee, das war, glaube ich... War das Loriot? Keine Ahnung. Hier tut sich gerade nichts. Hier tut sich gerade nichts. Auf dem anderen, mal gucken, ob sich hier was tut. Das hat mir der Timo geschickt und hat gesagt, hier läuft der Stream, da läuft aber nichts. Hier, das ist auch nur YouTube. Leute, es tut sich nichts. Ich bin auch live. Also, mal sehen, was die hier sagen. Die Chat-Funktion ist deaktiviert und trotzdem gucken lieber 164.000 Zuschauer bei Tesla als bei mir. Es ist unglaublich. Du willst nicht wissen, wie viele Oliver hat. Oh Gott, so viele. Ja gut, das ist halt so. Ich bin aber auch zufrieden. Ich liebe euch doch, ne? Lieber weniger Zuschauer, aber dafür haben wir ein echtes Band, eine echte Verbindung zueinander. Ich kenne jeden einzelnen von euch namentlich. Wir haben alle schon zusammen einen Kaffee getrunken. Und falls du derjenige bist, mit dem ich noch keinen getrunken habe, du bist der Einzige, mit dem ich noch keinen getrunken habe. Das müssen wir aber auch noch nachholen. Soll ich mal auf Vollbild schalten, solange da nichts los ist? Wir schauen derweil auf den Elon Musk Schrein. Ja. Ich könnte ja was singen. Oh, es tut sich was. Hat sich was verändert? Aber jetzt wieder nicht. Was ist denn hier los? Das gibt's doch alles gar nicht. Das darf doch alles nicht wahr sein. Warum funktioniert das hier nicht? Das muss mir wirklich mal jemand erklären. So, ja, jetzt wart doch mal ab. Elon muss sich doch noch frisieren. Ist nicht wahr, schreibt er, also Völkeller hat das geschrieben, ist nicht wahr, schreibt O-Team. Andreas schreibt, ach, ist der Rasen schön grün. Genau, Andreas, du kennst dich aus. Das wäre dann ich. Keine Ahnung, was der Christian da sagt. Bin ja auch da, schreibt der Hardy. Huki ist da, ich bin der Einzige. Schreibt bitte jetzt nicht, wer alles meint, er sei der Einzige. Das bist wirklich nur du. Lass dich von den anderen nicht irgendwie irre machen. Es gibt nur einen einzigen Zuschauer in dem Stream jetzt, mit dem ich noch keinen Kaffee zusammen getrunken habe. Und ich habe natürlich auch immer eingeladen, ne? Das nur als Information. Aber das mache ich in Zukunft nicht mehr. Also den letzten, mit dem ich jetzt noch einen Kaffee trinken muss, dann musst du mal bezahlen. Ich meine, ganz ehrlich, das sind ja dann schon 631, mit denen ich schon einen Kaffee getrunken habe. Ton kommt mit dem nächsten Update. Den Witz hat der Dirk schon gemacht, Ralf. Baldrian für Michel. Ja, ich bin ein bisschen aufgedreht. Soll ich nochmal eine Beruhigungstablette nehmen? Wäre vielleicht nicht verkehrt. Soll ich mal runterdrehen ein bisschen? Die Geschwindigkeit runterdrehen? Hier tut sich nichts. Leute, es ist immer noch auf live. Hat der Oliver Krüger etwa, läuft das bei dem? Wahrscheinlich kommt er zu spät, weil die Ladesäule nicht mit seiner Karte aufging. Das kann sein. Schreibt der Sebastian, naja, vielleicht wird der Battery Day doch nochmal verschoben. Hoffe ich jetzt mal nicht. Andi schreibt, wir waren beim Burger King und Bier haben wir auch schon getrunken. Aber Kaffee? Ja, mein Gott, leg's doch nicht auf die Goldwaage, Andi. Aber ihr seht hier, der Andi zum Beispiel, mit dem war ich schon bei Burger King was essen, ne? Ich habe auch bezahlt, der Andi wird sich nicht mehr dran erinnern, aber so ist das. Ich bin großzügig. Aber damit ist jetzt erstmal Schluss, weil kann mir es nicht mehr leisten. Ach, im Hintergrund wieder der Elon. Und wie er so schön lächelt. Lieber einen Kaffee als deine zusammengekippte Blöre, Bierblöre. Das ist pures Bier in einem Weinglas serviert vom Neubau der Sparkasse Bürgel 1995. Das hat eine Lehrgangsteilnehmerin vom Fachlehrgang damals mitgebracht. 3 Tabletten, schreibt der Kreasus-Film. Okay. 1, 2 und die dritte. Ah, 3 auf einmal zu schlucken ist nicht unkritisch. Ich würde sagen, während hier sich ja nichts tut, es ist total tote Hose, lese ich nochmal, wir könnten auch, würde euch das besser gefallen so, dann könnte ich mir das auch übers Gesicht halten, während der Stream läuft. Ich sehe aber im Moment nichts, das wollte ich also erst machen, aber das ist irgendwie, obwohl es ist vom Ausdruck gar nicht so verkehrt, oder? Wenn ich hier unten, Moment, ich könnte ja hier oben Augen reinschneiden. Nee, es ist vielleicht doch zu blöd. Leute, ich weiß nicht, wie ich jetzt überbrücken soll, ne? Tesla stellt mich vor eine Herausforderung. Ich kann ja nicht die ganze Zeit hier sappeln. Ich aktualisiere das Ganze jetzt nochmal. Es tut sich nichts. Es tut sich wirklich nichts. Ach, ist euch übrigens aufgefallen, Tesla hat die mag ich nicht Funktion ausgeschaltet. Und die Chat-Funktion ist auch nicht verfügbar. Ich gucke nochmal auf die anderen Plattformen. Mal sehen. Neueröffnung einer Sparkasse, das waren Zeiten. Genau, jetzt werden Sparkassen nur noch geschlossen. Das ist auch nix. Es ist nix da, Leute. Es ist nix da. Ich bin entsetzt. Was ist denn da los bei Tesla? Halt hier, Tesla Battery Day, jetzt live, now you know. Ach nee, das ist ja auch wieder nur. Die Stream, oh, die haben 55.000 Zuschauer. Was mache ich nur falsch? Haben die eine Schleppencam? Eine Schlappencam? Nein, die haben keine Schlappencam. Die kann ich jetzt, solange das hier läuft, auch ein bisschen größer machen. Da ist wenigstens ein bisschen Abwechslung. Jetzt habe ich hier einen Altar aufgebaut. Ich habe den Plasmafernseher aufgehängt. Habe Bilder vom Elon rausgesucht. So, Teelichter brennen vor sich hin. Und nichts funktioniert. Für einen Ton brauchst du einen Referral-Code, sagt der Herr Kai. Welchen nehmen wir denn von wem? Server down, sagt der Michael M. Erzähl mal nicht, dass du nicht am laufenden Meter sabbeln kannst. Leute, ich habe heute, warte mal, habe ich nicht heute Morgen schon was gestreamt? Was habe ich denn heute? Genau, Opel Mokka habe ich heute schon gestreamt, ne? Ja, Leute, das dürft ihr auch nicht unterschätzen. Meine Stimme, ne, ich kann kaum noch singen. Ich habe ja eine wunderschöne Singstimme, aber durch das ganze Gesabbel wird die ganz rauchig. Es gibt keine neue Batterie, sagt Otto Leirer mit 25 Ausrufezeichen. Der Otto hat auch schon gestreamt. Oh, es geht los. Oh, haben wir Ton? Oh, es ist ganz leise. Nee, kein Ton. Aber er hat's gemerkt. Jetzt haben wir Ton. 16 Euro von Martin, wenn du eins kannst, dann sabbeln, du schaffst das schon. Thank you, very appreciated. Wir stellen hier mal auf groß.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tesla's 2020 annual meeting of stockholders.
Welcome.
We're really excited that you could be here with us today.
Und wie ist?
My name is Al Prescott. I'm Tesla's Vice President of Legal. There'll be two parts of today's meeting. First, the formal part of the meeting will get out of the way, which will cover the 7 items that stockholders have been asked to vote on. After the voting, good afternoon, everyone. Tesla's co-founder and CEO, Elon Musk. Welcome to Tesla's 2020 presentation annual meeting of stockholders, company update and year in review. And then following the conclusion of the stockholder meeting, we'll start our separate Battery Day event. At this time, I'd like to thank the members of the Tesla team and our board, especially those who were able to make it out here in person today, as well as to our representative from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Tesla's independent auditor, who's also here. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to Robin Denholm, the chairwoman of Tesla, who would like to say a few words remotely.
Der Shareholder auf Tesla halt jetzt, also sagt ein paar Worte, ja, ferngesteuert? Ich weiß nicht, remotely. Oh.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2020 Tesla shareholder meeting. A special welcome to the many Tesla shareholders that have joined us today in person as well as online from across the country and around the globe. I wanted to start today's proceedings by thanking you, our shareholders, for your tremendous support over the last year, and especially to those of you who have been with us through our journey over the past 10 years since the company's IPO in 2010. While we have stayed true to our mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, in many ways, our company has evolved beyond recognition over the past decade, and that is a great thing. In fact, the pace of developments and the evolution of Tesla has further accelerated over the past 15 months since I last addressed you in June of 2019. You'll hear more about many of the specific achievements from Elon later in the agenda, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our Tesla employees across the globe.
Sie dankt also insgesamt den Aktionären und den Arbeitnehmern von Tesla.
Staying focused on delivering for our customers and shareholders as the world
Ich mache ein bisschen
has gone
Abwechslung für
through
euch.
one of the most challenging periods in our lifetimes.
Ist das unterhaltsam?
As a board, we have always taken a long-term view. We have made
Lauter.
decisions and supported decisions made by the management team that may not have seemed obvious at the time, and will continue to deliver.
Na?
But it's also important to remember why
Was
we
ist denn hier los? Was ist denn jetzt schon wieder?
As a company, we are focused on addressing one of the biggest environmental challenges of our
Lauter geht
generation.
nicht. Das ist alles, was
How to
drin ist.
accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. The last year in particular has seen a tremendous increase in momentum in the movement to sustainable energy from both shareholders and the general public. So in addition to developing amazing clean transportation and energy products, we are doing our part by contributing the right facts and information to this important issue. And we released an extended version of our impact report in April of 2020.
Moment, vielleicht kann ich noch
In
was
this
ändern.
year's version, we have covered in great detail many areas that are important to our shareholders and our customers alike, such as our environmental impact, greenhouse and other noxious gas elimination, our supply chain efforts, especially in coal,
Mehr geht nicht, Leute.
and our culture and people focus. We hope that by continuing to put this data out there, we will underscore to the world the importance and impact that we are having as a company. Lastly, continuous feedback and input from our shareholders is essential for us to do our jobs. and I would like to thank you for your support in this regard. Many of you have provided me and the team with ideas and insights that we as a board take into consideration as we evolve our governance and company practices. It's especially crucial to the board members as we pride ourselves in adaptability and the diversity of thought and experience that we collectively represent on the board. This brings me to my final two things today. As today is his last shareholder meeting, on behalf of the board, I would like to sincerely thank Steve Jurvetson for over a decade of service to Tesla, the board, and our shareholders. You will be missed. Finally, I would like to introduce to you our newest member of the board, Hiro Mizuno, who until recently led the largest pension fund in the world. He brings a wealth of experience to the board, but let me hand over to
Könnte ich
Hiro
machen,
to say a
Heini,
few
aber dann
words.
nerv ich die anderen.
Hiro.
Thank you, Robin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tesla Annual Shareholders Meeting. It is
Die
my
lesen
real
alle ab.
pleasure to virtually meet you, Tesla shareholders, people who believe in Tesla's mission and its growth opportunities. I spent all my career in finance and asset management.
Hab schon alles
In
aufgedreht, Fred.
Tokyo, New York, London, and Silicon Valley. Until recently, I was a chief investment officer of GPIF, $1.5 trillion Japanese public pension fund. And one of my priorities as an investment chief was to promote responsible investments, which aim to make financial returns while pursuing ESG agenda, such as environment and social issues. I believe in the market where ESG is becoming mainstream, purpose or mission-driven businesses will gain long-term investors' support. This is why I was interested in Tesla, where mission is to accelerate the world transition to sustainable energy. I'm very excited to join the Tesla team on the journey and hope to assist Tesla deliver what investors
Das hat ein
expect
bisschen was
by
von einer
further
deutschen
enhancing its
Ja, wie soll ich
environmental
sagen?
and social impact. Once again,
Präsentation.
Tesla shareholders, thanks for your support. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person next year. Thank you.
Ich habe jetzt nochmal nachgedreht,
Thanks,
jetzt ist
Robin and
wirklich
Hiro.
bis am Anschlag, bis am
I will
Gelben.
now call the meeting to order. Please refer to the meeting agenda that has been provided to you and posted also to our virtual meeting site. The time is now 1:49 p.m. Pacific time, and I declare that the polls are now open.
Jetzt kann man
We've
abstimmen für
already
verschiedene
received
Punkte.
voting proxies from stockholders over the past few weeks, meaning that almost all of the votes that will be counted were already submitted before the meeting.
Moment.
However, if you wish to vote now or to change your prior vote,
Mist.
you may do
Haben
so
wir
through the
die
virtual
Winkel
meeting site.
verändert.
For those that are here in person today, ballots and ballot boxes were available to you at check-in. Tesla's board of directors has appointed Computershare Trust Company to serve as inspector of elections for the meeting. Computershare has taken and signed an oath as inspector of election and has certified that starting on August 13th, 2020, the proxy material or a notice of internet availability of the proxy material were mailed or provided to all Tesla stockholders of record as of July 31, 2020. We have a majority of the outstanding shares represented at the meeting. So I declare that there is now a quorum present and that we may proceed with the meeting. The
Der
items
Hardy
on the
denkt, dass die
agenda
neue
are
Batterie
as
jetzt
follows.
endlich Plus und Minus hat.
The election of 3 Class 1 directors, Elon Musk, Robin Denholm, and Hiromichi Mizuno, to each serve for a term of 3 years. 2, to approve Tesla's executive compensation on an advisory basis. And 3, to ratify the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers, LLP, as Tesla's independent registered public accounting firm for the fiscal year of 2020.
PricewaterhouseCoopers
board
wird wohl
Has
testieren.
recommended that our stockholders vote for each of the director nominees and for each of those proposals.
Jetzt können wir die Schlappencam nehmen. Moment,
In
jetzt sehen
addition,
wir
we
beide.
have also received 4 stockholder
Das sieht doch
proposals
lustig aus.
as described in the proxy statement. I would like to remind our stockholders that Tesla's board has prepared a statement in opposition to each of these proposals,
Halt.
which appear in the proxy. The first stockholder proposal is an advisory vote regarding paid advertising. Our board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal. This stockholder proposal comes to us from James Danforth.
Oh Gott, wenn das Tesla sieht,
However, Mr.
die geben mir
Danforth has
nie einen
notified us
Testwagen.
that neither he nor his representative will be presenting the proposal at the meeting today. So we will continue. The second
Aber
stockholder
unterschiedliche
proposal
Socken an, stelle ich gerade
is an
fest.
advisory vote regarding simple majority
Und
voting
die muss ich runter
in our
machen.
governing documents.
Da habe ich nicht
Our
aufgepasst.
board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal.
Das sind
The
aber
proposal
beides
comes
Fahrradsocken.
from James McRitchie, who is on the line to present the proposal today. Mr. McRitchie, I would like to invite you now to present. You'll have 3 minutes.
So, jetzt ist es schön. Wunderbar.
I'd like to thank the board for holding such an innovative hybrid meeting during these difficult times. Proposal number 5 basically asks for a majority voting standard to amend bylaws. I first introduced a proposal on this subject at the 2014 Tesla meeting. Supermajority provisions are generally used to entrench incumbent directors and managers. Academic research finds that reducing such devices is associated with higher returns. The board's opposition statement argues they tried to adopt a majority standard last year, but shareholders rejected it. However, 99.6% of shares voted for the proposal. Only 0.4% voted against it. The problem was that a little more than 35% of shares went unvoted. The vast majority of retail shareholders often don't bother to vote. Since only 65% of shares were voted, we didn't achieve the 66.67% necessary to overturn the current supermajority bylaw. It appears the proposal failed primarily for 3 reasons. 1, the board put forth less than robust arguments in favor. 2, they added confusion with another proposal to reclassify the board not into a single class, that's the norm, but into 2 classes, elected in alternating years. 3rd, the board also failed to make a substantial effort to solicit votes in favor.
Die sitzen alle im Auto. Das kapiere ich ja jetzt erst.
With other poor corporate governance provisions at Tesla. First, shareholders can only remove directors for cause. What that basically means is the director has to be caught in criminal activity for shareholders to remove them. Second, because the board is divided into 3 classes, shareholders can only hold individual directors accountable every 3 years. And third, shareholders cannot call special meetings, nor can act by written consent. I hope you will agree. Corporations should not be democratic free zones. Vote for proposal number 5 so that 33% of shares cannot overrule the wishes of 67%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McRitchie. We'll now move on to our 3rd stockholder proposal, which is an advisory vote regarding reporting on employee arbitrations. Our board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal. This proposal comes from NIA Impact Capital, whose representative, Kelly Hall, is on the line to present the proposal today. Ms. Hall, I'd like to invite you to go ahead and present. You'll have 3 minutes.
3 Minuten, um das nächste Ansinnen vorzustellen.
Hello, my name is Dr. Kristen Hull, and I'm the founder and CEO of NIA Impact Capital. I formally move Proposal 6. This resolution requests that Tesla's Board of Directors oversee the preparation of a report on the impact of the use of mandatory arbitration on Tesla's employees and on its workplace culture. The report will
Bisschen
evaluate the
langweilig im
association
Moment.
of Tesla's
Aber
current use
Elon
of
kommt,
arbitration
Leute.
with the prevalence
Solange
of
nehmt
both harassment
Vorlieb mit dem
and
Altar.
discrimination in its workplace, and on employees' ability to seek redress should harassment or discrimination occur. This proposal speaks to the widespread experience of discrimination in the workplace by Black, Latinx, and female employees. The
Das ist ja eine Aktionärsversammlung. Da müssen wir halt durch jetzt, ne? Das gehört dazu, Leute. Das ist halt alles ein bisschen trocken. Aber lauter Model 3s. Ich sehe gar kein Model S.
Are at risk for unnecessary legal, brand, financial, and human capital issues. Support for this resolution is warranted for the following 5 reasons. 1.
5 Gründe.
Research shows that companies benefit from diverse and inclusive workplaces. 2. Corporate policies that allow harassment and discrimination risk investors' capital. 3. The use of arbitration exposes investors to an unknown level of risk. 4. Broad concerns exist with respect to fair treatment in Tesla workplace, and Tesla employees have alleged harassment and discriminations on the basis of both race and gender. Tesla, a company investors love for its innovation, leadership, and wise moat, is increasingly lagging behind its peers in its disclosure related to workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Ich bin schon ein bisschen kindisch, ne? Aber ich habe am Anfang gewarnt.
Innovation in its extraordinary product lines, Tesla has not shown proactive leadership in building a positive company culture or in addressing concerns about its workplace practices. In these material issues, Tesla lags behind its technology and automotive competitors. The use of arbitration limits employees' remedies for wrongdoing, precludes employees from suing in court, and often keeps underlying facts, misconduct, or case outcomes secret, therefore preventing employees from learning about and acting on shared concerns. Simply stated, arbitration allows bad corporate behavior, like bias, harassment,
Stimmt, Nordisch. Es ist insgesamt langweilig. Aber Shareholder-Versammlung, die stimmen jetzt ab über verschiedene Punkte. Und da muss man auch gesetzliche Vorgaben erfüllen. Wer macht denn sowas, hat verstanden, sie hat gesagt, das Model Y kommt nur als Diesel.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Our fourth and final proposal is an advisory vote
Vierte und letzter Antrag.
Our board has recommended that stockholders vote against this proposal. This proposal comes to us from the Sisters of Good Shepherd, New York Province, whose representative, Terence Collinsworth, is on the line to present today.
Unsere Gottheit kommt noch. Erhabener Nummer 2.
I would like to invite you to speak now. You have 3 minutes for your proposal.
Auch 3 Minuten, um den Antrag
vorzutragen. Thank you. I'm Terry Collinsworth, Executive Director of the International Rights Advocates. I'm here representing the Sisters of Good Shepherd, New York Province, to present Item 7 on human rights disclosure, which calls upon Tesla to issue a report to describe board oversight of human rights and its human rights due diligence process, including systems to provide meaningful remedies when human rights impacts occur.
Ich hab geschlafen, sorry Leute.
Serious human rights issues and failure to establish a culture of respect for human rights will expose Tesla to new liability issues and significant reputational injury, all of which will have a material impact on the company and its shareholders. The need to set a new course for human rights compliance with Tesla is glaring. Here are 5 examples of human rights violations occurring now in Tesla's operations.
Human rights, also Menschenrechte.
Racism, sexual harassment, and disregard for human safety and dignity harm workers at the Gigafactory 2 in Buffalo, New York every single day. And those workers urge you to remember their experiences in your vote. Tesla is experiencing serious labor relations issues at its production facilities and is actively discouraging union organizing. Workers are being exposed to COVID-19 and then are facing retaliation when they ask for greater protections. There are numerous worker health and safety violations as well as wage and hour issues. And finally, there are serious, even deadly human rights violations occurring in Tesla's global supply chains. On this last issue, my organization brought the pending suit against Tesla for using cobalt mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo by young children. I personally met young boys who lost limbs or were paralyzed in cobalt tunnel collapses. Tesla
Kobalt
sources
und
cobalt from
Kinderarbeit.
these very mines, and its claim to have, quote, zero tolerance for child labor in its supplier code of conduct is simply not true. Tesla is not only tolerating child labor in its cobalt supply chain, it is tolerating the death and maiming of young child minors.
Schwere
This
Themen.
demonstrates why the company must circle back and begin a process to report on its treatment of human rights issues as requested in this proposal. I think consumers will have
Soll ich
zero
die Schlappencam wieder
tolerance for a
reinnehmen, weil das ist ein
company
ernstes
that
Thema.
is
Ich will ja auch nicht
exposed as
mich
being
darüber lustig
indifferent
machen.
to killing and maiming child minors. We are hopeful that Tesla's innovative spirit can be brought to bear
Aber ich
on
glaube,
making
das ist auch
human
wieder eine
rights
sehr
a
einseitige
priority at the
Sichtweise,
company.
die dieser
For
Herr da,
example, if
der
Elon
gerade
Musk
spricht, hat.
cared about implementing a zero-tolerance child labor policy, instead of having a useless paper policy, Tesla could employ satellites or drones at every mine it sources from to actually monitor child labor. I encourage all
Es geht um die
Tesla
Armut
shareholders
in den
to vote
Ländern,
for
lieber
item
vortragender,
7,
englisch
human
sprechender
rights
Kommentator.
disclosure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Collinsworth. At this time, I'd like to thank our stockholders for all of their active participation in today's meeting and for those who just presented on the line. I'd also like to read some of the comments that have been submitted by you over the course of the meeting. The first comment comes from Michael Overbaugh.
Ein
I
Kommentar.
take great pride in the fact that we haven't had to stoop to the level of what advertising represents to get where we are today. I'd hate to give in to that kind of temptation now when we're so close to becoming a household name that's based solely on our merit alone. But if assets do end up having to be set aside for marketing, I'd like to suggest that rather than shoving ads down the customers' throats, we establish some sort of hardcore nationwide campaign and event with the goal of getting as many people as possible behind the wheel of a Tesla for an introduction drive. It's well known how far just doing that alone goes to converting people into fans. A line I recently ran across says, "You can talk all about the specs as much as you want, but when it comes to buying a car, what ultimately puts butts in seats is the feeling that the vehicle gives you." By demonstrating that Tesla clearly has both the specs
Okay, wir hätten den
and the
Stream auch
feeling,
später
what
starten
more
können,
needs
glaube
say?
ich.
Our second comment comes from the United Steelworkers on behalf of the Clean Air Now Coalition of Western New York by Sabrina Liu. Proposal, and it reads as follows. Proposals 6 and 7, up for vote this year, are the results of widespread concern about mistreatment of Tesla workers at U.S. factories and
Es geht
across
um
the supply
schlechte
chain.
Behandlung von Mitarbeitern bei
It is
Tesla.
clear that Tesla is not interested in addressing the harm they have caused to their workers, as their board is advising shareholders to vote against the proposal. We're urging all shareholders to vote in favor of Proposals 6 and 7. And on behalf of our workers at the United Steelworkers here in Western New York, and for Tesla employees across the country and across
Ist
the
natürlich
global
wichtig.
supply chain,
Ist wichtig.
while this doesn't repair the harm that's already been caused to countless employees, nor repair harm to children and communities forced into slave labor in the DRC, they represent steps towards a more just workplace at Tesla. This concludes all of the comments. Thank you all for your participation in the comments.
Auch nicht
We'll
leicht
now,
für ihn, das vorzutragen.
have a
Schwere
final
Kost.
opportunity for
Aber
any of you
gehört
to
dazu.
submit proxies in order for them to be counted. So I'll pause and wait for a moment for you to do that.
Komm her, wieder ein bisschen was Leichtes. So. Oder halten die jetzt eine Pause, eine Gedenkpause? Ach so, okay. Das sollte ich vielleicht auch keine Schlappen einblenden, ha?
Okay. I declare that the polls are now closed.
Jetzt
So
sind die
based on the
Abstimmungs...
proxies that we have
die Wahlen sind
previously
geschlossen.
received, I'd like to announce on a preliminary basis that our stockholders have approved the recommendations of Tesla's board on all agenda items, other than the stockholder proposal for an advisory vote regarding simple majority voting in our governing documents. After the final tabulation is completed, we'll formally announce the results of the voting by filing a Form 8K with the SEC within 4 business days of today. This now concludes the official business of Tesla's 2020 annual stockholders meeting, which is now adjourned. Next, we will have a company update
Jetzt
and a year
kommt
in
ein
review presented by
Unternehmensupdate.
Elon. And then
Von
we will
Elon.
start our Battery Day event. During the course of those following sessions, we may discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. Such
Zukunftsaussagen.
statements are predictions based on our current expectations. Actual events or results could materially differ due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those disclosed in our most recent 10-Q filed with the SEC. These forward-looking statements represent our views as of today. They shouldn't be relied on after today, and we disclaim any obligation to update them after today as well. We will
Okay.
now continue with the company update.
Jetzt kommt
And
das
you're in review?
Kompanie, also das
And it's my
Unternehmensupdate.
pleasure to introduce Tesla co-founder and CEO, Mr. Elon Musk.
Endlich! Mal Applaus in den Chat. Der Elon kommt. Der kriegt natürlich auch Schlappen. Oh, der hat aber zugelegt, hm? Da ist viel Elon.
Hey everyone. Well, I mean, this is definitely a new approach. We got the Tesla drive-in movie theater, basically. It's good to see everyone. It's a little hard to read the room with everyone being in cars, but it's it's the only way we could do it. So hopefully it's cool, and hopefully you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Das ist schon
Alright,
cool mit der Huberei, oder? Das ist doch
All right, well,
lustig.
thanks for coming. I think it's been an incredible year, and I'd like to thank you for your support through tough times, good times. It's been great. I
Gerne.
really appreciate everyone who's put their hard-earned money into Tesla.
Gut,
And
ich hab's ja wieder
I
rausgenommen.
think
Sorry,
it's worked
Elon.
out pretty well. This has been a good year, and I think there's many good years to come. So I'll go through the sort of the shareholder presentation, I think, fairly quickly, because the sort of real main event here is Battery Day. So
Wichtigster
really,
Event
I'm
ist Battery
just going
Day.
through a recap of what's happened over the past year or so.
Rückblick aufs letzte
Starting
Jahr.
From in terms of our ability to create a factory, huge kudos to the Tesla Shanghai team for being able to go from literally a
Wahnsinn.
dirt pile to volume production in 15 months.
Das ist
It's
die
like,
China
damn.
Factory.
Yeah. So, and I think something that's really quite noteworthy here is Tesla is the only foreign manufacturer to have a 100% owned factory in China. So this is often not well understood or not appreciated, but to have the only 100% owned foreign factory in China is a really big deal, and it's paying huge dividends here. So we really wouldn't have the results that we have had this year without the great efforts of the Tesla China team. So I'm super appreciative of that. And we'll see the Shanghai factory continue to scale quite a bit from where it is right now. I think we really could expect that to be, over time, a factory that produces over 1 million vehicles a year. Yeah, it's cool. So let's see. So volume, we also reached in the past year volume
Das hier
production
ist
of the
ein,
Model
ein
Y.
Hobby-Stream Nordisch
this
bei
was the
Nature.
smoothest
Da
launch
gibt's die
that we've
Schlappen
ever
an der
had.
Hüfte.
So I think we're definitely getting better at new vehicle launches and building factories and scaling production. As you've heard me say before, it's the hardest thing is scaling production, especially of a new technology. It's insanely difficult. Making a prototype is relatively easy, and if I think like what is the real achievement of Tesla in sort of car company terms, it's like it wasn't making sort of exciting prototypes. It was that Tesla was really the first company in about a century in the US the first U.S. company in the U.S. to reach volume production and be sustainably profitable. Like
Ich geb mir Mühe,
this has
Völkeller.
really not happened in 100 years. That's the actual super hard part. And we now have 4 vehicles in volume production.
Jakob.
S3 XY.
Jakob schreibt, wenn man eine
So,
Elon sieht,
also
vermute ich, der
toughest
singt
joke,
gleich
I
Gundam-Style.
think maybe ever. That was a very difficult joke to make. So we also introduced the lowest cost solar in the US. It's only $1.49 a watt. And we really just simplified the whole value chain. So reduced sales and advertising, got rid of a bunch of unnecessary costs, and really are just relying upon the fact that it's just the lowest cost, most efficient solar in the US. Providing both retrofit and the solar glass roof, which I think is a really great product, a hard product to make work, but it will be a major product line in the future. And we also got 4 consecutive quarters of GAAP profitability, which was very difficult. Yeah. So, and certainly a testament to the hard work of people at Tesla. I mean, to do this in extremely difficult times against a wide range of adverse circumstances was insanely hard. But we got it done.
Sagt, es war unglaublich oder verrückt hart.
The future is looking like, I think very promising from sort of an annual profitability standpoint. So, in order to achieve, in order to sort of do well financially, you really need economies of scale, and you need ideally the best technology. And I think we had the best technology for a while, but now we are also achieving economies of scale. So, and we're also rapidly improving autonomy, which is a massive value add to each car. So, you know, I think the value of Tesla is going to be like total, just on the vehicle side, total vehicles produced times the value of autonomy. That's
also autonomes Fahren hält er für das wichtigste Feature, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe.
We also have consistent free cash flow generation. This is really important for growth. And
Sie haben konstante freien Cashflow,
the time
also
from
Geldflüsse.
When a car is ordered to when it is built and delivered. So
Scheint
for
nervös
a
zu
company
sein,
that's
der
growing
Elon.
rapidly, it's extremely important to tighten the supply chain and to have from when parts arrive, put it into a car very quickly and deliver the car very quickly to the customer. And if you can do that inside the sort of your kind of payables timeline, then the faster you grow, the more cash you have. Or conversely, if you're unable to do it within your payables timeline, the faster you grow, the less money you will have, which is obviously bad. It's for a capital-intensive situation. So just tightening up and having the parts move very quickly to the factory, put it in a car, get it to a customer, makes a massive difference to cash flow generation. And I mean, that's why
Also
it's
geringe
extremely important to have
Lagerhaltung,
a factory
wenig
in each
Finanzierungskosten.
continent. Because if you don't
Das ist
at least
wichtig.
have a factory in the continent, it is impossible to achieve this. So having a factory in China that's able to serve China, and then you know, soon many other countries in the region, will be key to us tightening that total sort of chain of cash flow and getting it, essentially, the faster we grow, the more cash. This is really important. That's also why it's important to have Giga Berlin complete, because then we'll have a factory in China, a factory in the US, and soon a second factory in the US in Austin, and a factory in Europe. And I mean, even if for Giga Texas in Austin, even if we had exactly the same costs as in California, it would still be advantageous to do it there, because it's roughly 2/3 of the way across the U.S. So in terms of delivering cars to the central U.S. and to the East Coast, it's just faster, costs less, and it fundamentally improves our economics. So I think this is also maybe something that's not fully appreciated.
Kurze
of just how important
Lieferketten,
it is to
enge
have a
Lieferketten,
factory at
das
least
scheint sehr
on the
wichtig zu
continent
sein.
or reasonably close to where the end customer is.
Just
So
in
you can
time,
tighten
genau,
that whole
Zählwerk,
chain.
was BMW auch schon bei der Ersatzteilversorgung teilweise echt Probleme
Industry
bereitet hat.
performance, you know, while the rest of industry has gone down, Tesla has gone up. And I think this speaks to, thanks.
Oh, schwarzer
and so
Bildschirm.
I'd like to thank all the customers for taking a
Jetzt kann
chance
ich
on
keine
Tesla
Schlappen einblenden, wegen
and buying our
dem
product,
Untertitel.
and really hope you're enjoying it. This is really, our sales, as Elle was saying, really grow by word of mouth. So this is really, I think, a very pure, it's very pure in the sense that it's like, it's growing on the basis of existing owners recommending it to
Ich glaube, ich werde dem Elon mal ein Band-Shirt schicken.
This is really, I think, a good way to grow.
XXL müsste
and
passen,
in
oder?
2019, we had 50% growth. And I think we'll do really pretty well in 2020. Probably somewhere between 30 to 40% growth, despite a lot of very difficult circumstances. I mean, there's so many, pandemic, wildfires. It's like a whole bunch of difficult production issues. But thanks to the hard work of the Tesla team and a lot of innovative approaches to overcoming issues, we're able to still see significant growth in one of the most difficult, in fact, I say probably the most difficult year of Tesla's existence. So, and we also published our extended impact report. At Tesla, we try very hard to do the right thing. If the right thing does not happen, it's just because we maybe made a mistake or weren't aware of it. But we always try to do the right thing as to the best of our ability. And then we published the extended impact report to show, just a sort of a self-examination of, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong?
3XL sagt
what can we do better in
Vampire,
the future?
okay.
We're definitely trying to accomplish the most good, and so, if we occasionally make a mistake, we work quickly to fix it and do the right thing. So, it's worth looking at like the average life cycle emissions in the U.S. And just how much better a Tesla is or an electric car than any other than any kind of gasoline car. And what we'll talk about in the battery day is also just how much the grids around the world and actually, especially in the U.S., are greening. It's actually much faster than I think people realize. The U.S. is moving towards sustainable
Adi holt
energy.
sich ein Eis, kann
And
ich
so
jedem
as
nur
we move more and
empfehlen.
more to sustainable energy, then effectively you end up building the solar factories and the car factories themselves with solar.
Hallo, Kopfdichtung geplatzt.
Over time,
Kommt
you
nach.
do with sustainable
5
energy.
Minuten
Over
aus der
time,
Ecke
you will
zuschauen.
even mine with sustainable energy, and eventually it will get to an effective emissions of 0. So that's where things will end up. Yeah. So we also have safety at the core of our design.
Das sind welche aus den
Tesla
Autos
cars are the
raus.
safest cars ever designed. We have the lowest probability of injury of any cars ever tested by the U.S. government, and that's just passive safety. When you add active safety into that, it's even better. It's really
Sicherste Autos überhaupt.
If safety is important to you, which obviously it is, the safest car you could drive is a Tesla. So.
Also das sicherste Auto, was man fahren kann, ist ein Tesla, laut Elon Musk.
Safety is paramount. It is actually the #1 design objective when we build a Tesla is safety. Our factories are also becoming safer, and if you look at the sort of accidents per vehicle, total vehicle
Sicherheit
weight,
in den
it's
Fabriken,
dramatically
auch sicherer
better
als
than
der
in the
Rest.
past. And it's already better than industry average, and we're confident we can get it to the best in the auto industry. Autopilot functionality continues to improve, and you can see it in the safety report that we publish every quarter. It's just getting better and better. The U.S. average for collisions is at roughly 2.1 per million miles, and with Autopilot engaged, it's 0.3.
Wow.
This is a profound
7-mal
difference.
weniger
Really,
mit Autopilot
massive.
Unfälle als
And
ohne.
this will get even better. So we're confident that over time we can get the probability of an accident, especially the probability of injury, to 10 times better than the industry average, like an order of magnitude better. So that's just a lot of lives saved and a lot of injuries avoided. So
Schlafen
that's,
legen darf man sich im Auto,
huge
sagt der
priority for us.
Bayerweitler, korrekt.
On the Autopilot front, I think it's kind of hard for people to judge the progress of Autopilot. Like I'm driving. I as a matter of course I've always done this. I drive the bleeding edge alpha build of Autopilot, And
Andy schreibt, rettet
so,
den
so
Wald,
I sort of
esst
have
mehr
insight
Biber.
into what is going on. Previously, about a couple of years ago, we were kind of stuck in a local maximum.
Wir wollen ja
we're-
eigentlich
we're
was zur Batterie
improving,
hören,
but,
ne?
like the improvements kind of started tailing off and
Sind
not,
die
and just not
Teslas
getting where
Leitplanken
they need to
sicher?
be.
Das ist eine Frage, die hat er nicht
we were
beantwortet.
quite close
Wie
to
immer, da
getting
drückt er
trapped in
sich
a local
drum.
maximum.
Bin ich vor
And so we had
Leitplanken
to do a
sicher?
fundamental rewrite of the entire Autopilot software stack, and all of the labeling software as well. So we're now labeling in 3D video. So this is hugely different from the previously where we were labeling essentially a bunch of single images from the 8 cameras, and they would be labeled at different times by different people, and some of the labels you literally can't tell what it is you're labeling. So it basically made it sort of in some cases impossible to label, and the labels had a lot of errors. Now with our new labeling tools, we label it in video. So we actually label entire video segments, and the system. So you get basically a surround video thing to label, and with the surround video and with time. So it's now taking all cameras simultaneously, and looking at how the images change over time and labeling that, and then the sophistication of the neural nets in the car and the overall logic in the car has improved dramatically. I think we'll hopefully
Ich mache derweil ein
release
bisschen
a
Buchführung.
private beta of Autopilot, of the full self-driving version of Autopilot in, I think, a month or so, and then people will really understand just the magnitude of the change. It's profound.
Ah, Hugi, danke für die Aufklärung.
So, yeah. Anyway, so you'll see it's just like a hell of a step change. But because we had to rewrite everything, labeling software, just the entire code base, it took us quite a while, and the sort of new sort of, I call it like 4D in the sense that it's 3 dimensions plus time. It's just taken us a while to rewrite everything, and so you'll see what it's like. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just
Es
clearly
ist
gonna
einfach
work.
toll. Es ist spitze, sagt der Elon.
Tesla core competencies. We've got engineering, obviously. But also manufacturing. I think manufacturing is underappreciated in general, and the difficulty
Wenn ich
of
stricken
designing
könnte,
the
würde ich
machine
jetzt
that
was
makes the machine
stricken.
is vastly harder than the machine itself. So, the designing, like making a Model 3 or Model Y or a Cybertruck prototype is really quite trivial compared to designing the factory that makes it. Especially if it's new technology and you want to use new manufacturing methods, it's just at least 10 to 100 times harder to do the factory than the prototype. And that's why you see a lot of companies out there or startups, they'll bring out a prototype, but they just can't get it over the hump for manufacturing, because manufacturing of new technology especially is the hardest thing by far.
Habt ihr gehört? Er spricht gerade über
basically the
Sonomotors.
prototype is somewhere is at
Wobei, die
best
haben ja noch
10%
nicht mal einen
of the difficulty
Prototypen.
and probably closer to 1%.
Und das sagt Elon Musk.
And
Was
then
sagt uns das
software.
über Sonomotors?
Tesla is both a hardware and a software company. So a huge percentage of our engineers are actually software engineers. And you can think of our car as kind of like a laptop on wheels. And so software is incredibly important. And so not just in the car, but also in the factory. So the factory software is extremely important. Just software in general. These are fundamental. These are the 3 critical areas that are needed
Ich meine, die
to
richtigen
make
Aktionäre
for an
interessiert
awesome
das
company.
natürlich. Aber ich bin ja kein Aktionär.
So
Jetzt Batterie.
yeah. So we have now we'll soon have 3 new factories, incremental, on, well, we have one already, on 3 different continents. Shanghai, we're expanding the Shanghai with the second phase.
Das ist übrigens das
Berlin
aktuelle
is
Bild.
making
Ne?
rapid progress.
Hat es euch wundert.
And Texas is making even faster progress. So, yeah. With each factory, what we're trying to do is also improve the manufacturing technology. So, it's
Da ist die
you know, in
Gigafactory
some cases,
Berlin.
like the Model Y made in Berlin might look the same, but it actually is made in a much more efficient way. And yeah, we'll talk about that later in the battery presentation. Yeah, launched Megapack. It's a 3 megawatt hours all-in-one energy storage solution. So it's been great overall. Yeah.
3
All right.
Megawattstunden
And I think that's
Akkupack.
basically it. Right. All right. Thank you.
Das war's. Jetzt kommt hoffentlich Battery Day.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and we'll be back in a little bit to go through the battery stuff. And there's a little bit more, in addition to the battery stuff, we got a few extras as well. So I think you'll really like what we have to say on batteries. The battery stuff we're going to talk about is truly revolutionary and essential to Tesla's goal. The fundamental good of Tesla. It's like if you look back in history and say what good did Tesla do? The good will be to by how many years did we accelerate sustainable energy?
Ja, das
That's
stimmt.
like the true metric of success.
Wie sehr sie erneuerbare
It
Energie
matters
beschleunigt haben.
if sustainable energy happens faster or slower, and so that's really like how I think about Tesla and how we should sort of assess our progress. By how many years did we accelerate sustainable energy? And what we're going to talk about with batteries and a few other things will really explain how we're going to make a step change improvement in the acceleration of sustainable energy. Thank you.
Ich habe nicht komplett zugehört, aber ich applaudiere doch mal.
Hi, folks. That was great. We're going to take a short break before we begin the Battery Day event. So stay tuned. If you're local and here in the audience today, you can feel free to get out of the cars and stretch your legs, but try to stay near the cars because we're going to begin promptly in a little bit. See you soon.
Okay, jetzt gibt es erstmal eine Pause. Da können wir mal zwischendrin rekapitulieren, was wir gerade gesehen haben. Also ich behalte das Video im Auge. Wenn sich was tut, dann schalten wir auf jeden Fall wieder zurück. Die verlassen gerade alle die Autos und vertreten sich die Beine, ziehen auch alle brav die Masken auf. Was halten wir denn bisher da so von? Also viel Neues gab es jetzt nicht. Das, was mich geschockt hat, war dieser eine Bericht von dem, ich nehme an, Gewerkschafter, wo es um die Arbeitsverhältnisse ging und auch darum, dass Tesla für den Tod von Kindern verantwortlich ist, weil halt Kobalt in den Batterien ist. Das sind für mich so Argumentationsketten, die ich nicht nachvollziehen kann. Denn die Kinder arbeiten ja nicht in den illegalen Minen, weil sie so gern Kobalt schürfen, sondern weil die einfach sonst nichts zu essen haben. Das ist wegen der Armut dort. Und dafür kann Tesla ja nichts. Und verboten ist es in den Ländern ja auch. Und der größte Teil wird ja industriell gefördert. Und wenn man bedenkt, dass es über 70 Millionen Kinder in Kinderarbeit gibt, weltweit und davon 70% in der Landwirtschaft, das ist ein globales Problem. Aber das kann man jetzt nicht hier Tesla anlasten, sondern da muss man als Weltgemeinschaft dran arbeiten und versuchen, das abzustellen, indem man dahin arbeitet, dass halt in allen Ländern Familien den Lebensunterhalt für ihre Familie finanzieren können und die Kinder satt kriegen. Was soll man dazu sagen? Mich hat's echt geschockt. So, mal gucken, ich kriege hier gerade eine Moment, mal gucken, eine WhatsApp. Ja, okay. So, Tino, falls du zuschaust, da hast du mir einen falschen Link geschickt, ne? Auf der Seite ging gar nichts. So, jetzt gucken wir mal, was ihr schreibt. Kaffeepause. Soll ich mir noch ein Bierchen holen, Leute, damit die Zunge noch was lockerer wird? Ein Tanz von Chantal, so ein Bullshit, super schlappen. Danke, Analogon. Ich find's cool zu wissen, warum es so lange so gestockt hat beim Autopiloten. Jetzt bin ich schlauer, sagt der What's to the Wheels. Beste Qualität von allen YouTubern, sagt der Horseman on Tour. Da kann man drüber streiten. Kommst du gerade von einem anderen? Ach, du redest von einem anderen wahrscheinlich. Kobalt ist mittelfristig nicht mehr nötig, löst aber die Probleme im Kongo natürlich auch nicht. Und es wird auch weiter Kobalt im Kongo abgebaut, denn wir wissen ja alle, das ist nicht nur in Batterien für Teslas drin. Ich hoffe, es kommt nicht nur Lithium-Tenet-Akku. Es ist zwar super, aber nicht wirklich was Neues. Mit der Argumentation kannst du jedes Problem vom Tisch wischen, Ben. Ja, Guido. Dann kannst du auch nichts mehr kaufen, dann kannst du kein Smartphone mehr kaufen, du kannst keinen Verbrenner mehr kaufen, überall ist Kobalt drin. Ist nicht sogar Lithium, ist auch in der Glasverarbeitung in ganz vielen Rohstoffen. Und jetzt greifst du einen Hersteller raus und sagst, oh, das ist aber schlimm. Das ist doch mit allen, nimm doch Öl, nimm doch allein die Ölförderung. Was meinst du, wie viele Menschen da ums Leben kommen, wie es in den Ländern dort zugeht, welche Umweltverschmutzungen dort entstehen? Oder auch, da gibt's doch die von der FAZ, die hatte da Bilder von irgend so einem See, der auf Jahrzehnte vergiftet ist durch die Ölförderung da. In Argentinien war das, glaube ich. Schlimme Bilder, die natürlich auch emotionalisieren sollen, ganz klar. Aber zu glauben, man löst das Problem im Kongo, indem Tesla kein Kobalt mehr in die Akkus packt, das glaubst du doch selbst nicht. Ihr merkt gerade, ich sollte vielleicht nochmal, also wenn das die Argumentationskette ist, dann muss ich zugeben, dann verstehe ich es nicht, dann habe ich in dem Fall ein Brett vorm Kopf. Das sind Probleme, die mit Armut zusammenhängen. Man dürfte auch keine Klamotten bei Kick kaufen. Man dürfte kein Smartphone von Apple kaufen. Man dürfte wahrscheinlich kein Samsung-Smartphone kaufen. In allen Fernsehern sind Displays aus China. Ich glaube, es gibt nur noch 2 Hersteller, die große Panels herstellen für TVs. Die sind in allen Marken, sind die drin. So, aber dann wird über China und die Menschenrechtsverletzungen dort gesprochen. Das ist sicherlich so, aber das löst man nicht, indem man jetzt von einem chinesischen Hersteller keinen Fernseher mehr kauft. Und in den Ländern wie China entwickelt sich das ja auch langsam. Die Situation verbessert sich, also zumindest was ich mitbekomme. Ich bin ja nun auch nicht super informiert. Wenn man Osthessen-News liest, kriegt man sicherlich nicht alles mit. Aber ich hoffe, ihr versteht, was ich meine. Wisst ihr, was ich jetzt mache? Ich hole mir jetzt gerade noch mal ein Bierchen, ne? Von einem Corona wird man nicht besoffen, ich hole mir jetzt noch eins. Nein, auch von 2 werde ich nicht betrunken, ja? Ich habe heute auch schon Sport gemacht, guckt nicht so böse. So, und wer mir jetzt wieder auf den Hintern guckt, ne, gibt's Ärger. Und ich gucke gerade mal, ob das hier heiß geworden ist. Nee, alles noch schön kühl. Da. Seid ihr auch noch da? Es läuft übrigens noch nichts. Ne? Also sie stehen immer noch rum. Ich zeig's euch mal. Moment. Einmal nach unten. Da seht ihr das. Ich habe jetzt auch noch den passenden Strumpf angezogen. Das geht ja gar nicht. Das kann ich ja wieder nach oben ziehen. So. Habt ihr euch gut unterhalten, während ich weg war? Robin labert ja noch mehr als Schmidti. Ja, ich habe extra zwischendrin die Klappe gehalten, ne? Damit ihr auch zuhören könnt, was der Elon so sagt. Aber im Moment ist ja echt gar nichts los da, ne? Guckt der eine her hier in dem blauen Shirt, der telefoniert. So. Okay. Ja, hol dir doch ein Bierchen. Wer macht denn sowas? Du darfst dich da nicht abhalten lassen. Das ist übrigens, ja, alkoholfrei ist es nett, aber nur 4,5%. Also ich werde mich jetzt nicht betrinken. Aber wie gesagt, da muss man sich auch mal was erlauben können, wenn das ein bisschen langatmig ist. Bravo, Michael, super Statement. Bevor man auf andere zeigt, sollte man zuerst mal bei sich anfangen. Sagt der Schmidti, ja, und wir arbeiten ja auch dran. Wir wollen ja nachhaltig werden. Mein Ziel ist auf Dauer, mit dem Verbrennen von Rohstoffen tatsächlich aufzuhören. Das ist das, was ich erreichen will. Erster Schritt ist gemacht. Fronius-Wechselrichter, Gen 24 Plus hängt im Keller. Da kann ich einen Akku anschließen, brauche keinen extra Wechselrichter. Da ist eine Notstromversorgung dran. Und natürlich Akku wird das nächste Thema sein. Und dann will ich an eine Wärmepumpe ran. Und dann hoffe ich auch, zumindest mittelfristig, meine Ölheizung komplett rauswerfen zu können und dann nur noch elektrisch zu heizen. Und den größten Teil hoffentlich vom Dach zu holen. Dann packe ich mir noch einen Photovoltaikzaun in den Garten und dann hoffe ich wirklich nahe 100% zu kommen. So, und jeder soll bei sich selbst, auch Kleinigkeiten sind's, nicht auf andere zeigen, sondern selbst anfangen, was zu ändern. Wirklich nur Kleinigkeiten. Ich versuche auch meinen Fleischkonsum ein bisschen runterzufahren, es fällt mir schwer, aber ich habe es um rund 1/3 schon runtergefahren. Vielleicht komme ich auch auf die Hälfte. Das ist das, was ich probiere. Aber auf andere zeigen, das fällt mir im Traum nicht ein. Also ich habe auch auf Facebook immer mal wieder Leute, die dann, Burger King geht ja gar nicht. Fangt doch erstmal bei euch selber an. Vielleicht habt ihr auch noch Optimierungspotenzial und zeigt nicht auf andere. Jeder hat sicherlich irgendwo was er besser machen kann. Und wir bemühen uns alle und deshalb werde ich morgen auch nicht zu Burger King fahren, sondern erst übermorgen. So. Prost. Corona nicht aus dem Glas, schreibt der Martin, euch kann man es aber echt nicht recht machen. Ich sag mal so, Martin, der Klügere kippt nach. Das mache ich gerade mal. So, dann kann ich heute Abend vielleicht auch gut schlafen. Nachdem ich mich hier wieder so habe aufregen müssen. Immer muss ich mich aufregen. So, wo muss ich denn hin? Ich muss hier auf die 1. So, wir blenden den Mönch nochmal ein. Guckt mal, das sieht doch fast aus wie Elon Musk. Ne? Kaum ein Unterschied zwischen den beiden. Sensationell. So. Wir sollten mit dem Verbrennen von Teelichter wenigstens mittelfristig aufhören. Jetzt hört auf, jetzt werdet ihr mir doch nicht wegen den Teelichtern hier die Hölle heiß machen. Soll ich jetzt die 4 Teelichter ausmachen? Eine 1 in Chat, wenn ich die 4 Teelichter ausmachen soll. Und eine 2, wenn ihr sagt, ihr könnt mich mal. So. Das ist so schlimm bei uns, das Fingerzeigen, da hast du vollkommen recht, Steffen. Jeder hat beim anderen was auszusetzen, nur bei sich selbst nicht. Ich war in einem Hotel in Schwaben und wollte mit Maske, hatte die Maske auf, beim Reingehen gesagt, ich brauche eine Maske. Und dann sagt der Herr an der Rezeption, nee, Sie brauchen hier keine Maske, nur morgens beim Buffet. Weil, wie, man braucht keine Maske. Er hat gesagt, ja, in den Räumen, wo Sie sich hier normal bewegen, brauchen Sie keine Maske anzuziehen. Also bin ich in dem Bereich, wo keine Maske notwendig war, ohne Maske rumgelaufen. Und da kommt mir eine Frau entgegen und brabbelt in ihre Maske, aha, ohne Maske, so. Also so nach dem Motto, der hat keine Maske auf. Boah, könnte ich mich darüber aufregen. Wenn es nicht vorgeschrieben ist, werden die Behörden ihren Grund haben, warum es nicht vorgeschrieben ist. Dort, wo es vorgeschrieben ist, ziehe ich sie auf, weil ich habe keine Ahnung von diesem C-Scheiß. Ich wollte sagen, von dem C-Kram. Und deshalb halte ich mich an das, was die Bundesregierung oder die Behörden vorgeben. Aber bitte, bitte, da wo es nicht erforderlich ist, da zeigt doch nicht mit dem Finger auf mich und sagt, der hat keine Maske auf. Könnte ich wahnsinnig werden, echt. Okay, ich sehe ganz viele Zweien, also lasse ich die Teelichter jetzt an. So, man muss auch mal rebellisch sein, ne? Übrigens, zur Info für euch, es tut sich immer noch nichts. Wie spät haben wir es denn? Ein paar von euch müssen langsam ins Bett, ne? Wir haben schon 20 vor 12. Nicht, dass es später Ärger gibt. Immerhin fährst du mit dem Rad oder Sonnenstrom zum Burger King, genau. Dieses Jahr bin ich halt nur so 2000 Kilometer Rad gefahren, dafür aber 700 Kilometer gejoggt, ne? Aber nicht zum Burger King, also da gehe ich dann nicht zum Burger King. So, schön, der TV läuft für nix im Hintergrund. Nein! TV. So, wir sparen den Moment. Mach noch hier. So. Ach so, Moment. Okay. Also ich habe jetzt aber noch 2 Monitore laufen, ne? Was mache ich denn jetzt mit den beiden Monitoren? Mache ich die auch noch aus? Und vielleicht auch noch das Internet und den Livestream? Ach, wisst ihr was? Mal politisch unkorrekt sein. Die Schlampencam muss auf jeden Fall anbleiben. Ich glaube, das Licht auch und das Licht auch. Ich bin ein Rebell. Ich bin ein Umweltrebell. Also ich unterwerfe mich nicht dem Diktat der Extremisten, ja? Ob links oder rechts, ist mir egal. Du machst aber auch, was die Regierung vorschreibt. Von selbst nix. Genau, Haber. So sieht's aus. Ich wollte die Diskussion gar nicht lostreten. Mehr Teelichter, so ist gut. Das ist doch schon mal ein Anfang. Ja, du kannst das mit dem C lassen. Das vorhin hat schon 3-mal dein Bier beim Namen genannt. Ja, Energiesparmodus. Ja, übrigens sind das alles LED-Lampen, die hier brennen, ne? Komplett. Also, ne? Das gleicht wieder einiges aus. Der Quiona Burger beim Mc's war super, gibt's aber glaube ich so nicht mehr, leider. Ja, Analog Nexus, den habe ich aber nicht probiert. Oh, jetzt sehen wir ist das die Golden Gate Bridge? Ich glaube, das ist die Golden Gate Bridge. Oh Gott, ist das bei den Feuern? Ist das der Smog durch die Feuer? Das sieht fast so aus. Ach du großer Gott. Ach du großer Gott. Kann das sein? Nee, aber das ist doch, Moment mal, war das nicht bei Los Angeles die Brände? Der Alien kann leider keine Maske aufsetzen. Gut, das ist ein Alien. Dann würde er wahrscheinlich, ich weiß gar nicht, gibt es für Alien extra Masken? 2,29 € hat er springen lassen. Vielen Dank, Alien. Very appreciated. Ist jetzt very großzügig from you. So, geht weiter? Nee, geht nicht weiter. Wir sind immer noch live. Es läuft alles. Im Dunkeln gefällst du uns viel besser. Oh, jetzt geht's weiter. Okay, jetzt muss ich wieder ruhig sein. Haben wir Ton? Ja, wir haben auch Ton. Jetzt wird's spannend, Leute. This is real.
Hello, everyone.
Woo!
Sure. Thanks, Elon. Oh, hi. I'm Drew Baglino, SVP of Powertrain and Energy Engineering at Tesla, and I'm incredibly excited to talk about what we've been doing at batteries here at Tesla.
Jetzt geht's um Batterien.
So let's see. You got the clicker.
Yeah, I've got the clicker. Yeah.
Okay. Let's I'll take it first, perhaps.
Sure.
So obviously the issues we're facing are very serious. With climate change and we're
Okay,
experiencing
Elon.
these issues
Aber ich lasse die Teelichter
on
an.
a day-to-day
Ich mach zwei
basis.
aus. Climate change.
It's incredibly important we accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. Time really matters. This presentation is about accelerating the time to sustainable energy.
50% CO2-Emissionen reduziert.
The past 5 years were the hottest on record. We have what looks like a wall for CO2 ppm. It's obviously, this time is not like the past. It's really important that we take action. Running this climate experiment is insane. So,
Especially when it's just a transitory one anyway.
yes.
We're going to run out of these fossil fuels. Let's just move to the future and not run this experiment any longer.
Da hat er recht.
Talk a bit louder.
You got it.
Okay.
Das verbrennbare Zeug
so
wird
anyway.
Irgendwann enden. Lasst es uns vorziehen, darauf zu verzichten. Das kann ich unterschreiben.
There is a lot of good news, though. A lot of people may not be aware that wind and solar comprise 75% of new electricity capacity in the U.S. this year. So this is a really major. So the grid is going sustainable very, very quickly. Now it's also worth noting that the length of time that power plants last is on the order of 25 years. So even if 100% of energy generation was sustainable, it would still take 25 years to convert the grid. And it's also worth noting that in the past 10 years, power production from coal has dropped in half. So it went from 46% of electricity in 2010 to 23% in 2020. So this is a massive improvement. So good things are happening on a lot of levels. We just need to go faster. So in terms of Tesla's contribution, we've delivered over 1 million electric vehicles, 26 billion electric miles driven, and many gigawatt hours of stationary batteries, 17 terawatt hours of solar generated. So I think solar is sometimes underweighted at Tesla, but it is a massive part of our future. The three parts of a sustainable energy future are sustainable energy generation, storage, and electric vehicles. So
Also Speicher und elektrische
play a
Fahrzeuge sind
significant role in all
wichtig.
three. So to accelerate
Und
the
die
transition to sustainable
PV-Stromgeschichte.
energy, we must produce more EVs. They need to be affordable and a lot more energy storage while building factories faster and with far less investment. So goal number one is a terawatt-hour scale battery production. So tera is the new giga, and a terawatt is 1,000 times more than a gigawatt. So we used to talk in terms of gigawatts. In the future, we'll be talking in terms of terawatt hours. So this is
Da links ist
what's
ein
needed
kleines
in order
Auto.
to transition
Small
the world to
Robotaxi.
sustainability.
Yeah, and you can see we're talking about 100x growth in batteries for electric vehicles to achieve this mission. And we are going to get there. It's just a matter of how fast, and our intention is to accelerate it.
Yeah, you basically need on the order of roughly 10 terawatt hours a year of battery production to transition the global fleet of vehicles to electric.
And the average vehicle lasts 15 years, so we're talking about 150 terawatt hours, give or take, to transition the whole all vehicles of all types.
Wow, das ist eine Menge.
To electric.
Yeah, so it's a lot of batteries, basically.
Ja, viele Batterien.
And yeah, so.
And then on the grid side, we have a similar mountain to climb, 1,600 times growth from today's grid batteries to go 100% renewable on the grid and to take all of the existing heating fossil fuel uses in homes and businesses 100% electric.
Yeah, and this number I think might grow even more. As the world economy matures and as countries with high populations industrialize, we could see this number be even more. But let's say it's like roughly 20 to 25 terawatt hours per year, sustained for 15 to 25 years to transition the world to renewable. This is a lot.
Yeah.
So today's batteries cannot scale fast enough. They're just too small. For Giga Nevada, 150 gigawatt hours per year is like what we probably expect to make out of there. But this is really pretty small in the grand scheme of things.
Wow,
that's
das
only
ist
0.15
klein.
terawatt hours. And they cost too much. So
we would need 135 fully built out
135
Nevada
gigafactories
gigafactories to achieve 20 terawatt hours a year. It's not scalable enough of a solution. We need a dramatic rethink of the cell manufacturing system to scale as fast as we can and should.
Yeah, and I think we should view this as more than just a question of money. Money is sort of like an ethereal thing, but it's really the amount of effort. You have a certain amount of effort in terms of people and machines, and depending on how efficient that effort is, for a given amount of effort, you want the most amount of batteries. So it's not just a question of like, well, if we had $2 trillion, tomorrow you could make this. It's not that easy. You actually need to organize a massive number of people, build a lot of machines, build the machines that make the machines. And so it's incredibly important to have that effort yield the most number of batteries.
Sieht man mal wieder, mit Geld allein baut man nichts. Da fällt mir wieder so eine Motors ein.
So, and then goal two, obviously we need to make more affordable cars. I think one of the things that troubles me the most is that we don't yet have a truly affordable car, and that is something that we will make in the future. But in order to do that, we've got to get the cost of batteries down. We've got to make, and we've got to be better at manufacturing, and we need to do something about this curve. The curve of the cost per kilowatt hour of batteries is not improving fast enough. So we've given this a lot of thought over many years to say, okay, how can we radically improve
Also die Preise für Batterien fallen ihm nicht schnell genug.
It's been somewhat flattening out actually in recent years. So
I mean, early growth was promising, but you can see we're kind of plateauing. So that's what's motivating us to rethink how cells are produced and designed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and EV market share is growing, but EVs, aren't still accessible to all. And you can see, as Drew was saying, it's like starting to flatten out a little bit because the rate of improvement of the affordability of cars is just not fast enough. So that's why we got battery days.
Bezahlbaren Elektroautos.
To make the best cars in the world, we design vehicles and factories from the ground up. Next.
Yeah.
And now we do this for batteries as well.
Yeah. It's weird, the slides don't show up.
Ach, da links, guck mal, ein Roadster.
What shows up on the screen is not quite what shows up there. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's different.
Yeah, I think it's because that's,
No, that one's current, supposed to be current. Anyway.
So let's get started. We have a plan to halve the cost per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Sie wollen die Kosten
And it's
pro
not a
Kilowatt Hour
plan
halbieren.
that rests on a single innovation, some research project that'll never see the light of day. It's a plan that has taken creative engineering and industrialization across every facet of what makes a cell into a battery pack, from raw material to the finished thing. And we're going to go through that plan with you today, step by step, and build up how we get to these goals and how we accelerate this transition and make our vehicles and our grid batteries more affordable.
Yeah. I mean, we basically thought through every element of the battery, well, almost every element. There are a few more elements that we won't get to today, but we will get to in the future.
Yes.
Also sie drehen
So
jeden
first,
Stein
before we
offensichtlich
get
an
too
der
far
Batterie.
into it, let's talk about what is in a battery cell. We've got the cap and the can, negative and positive terminals of the cell. When you open that cell, you've got a tab connected to those terminals, what we call the jelly roll, which is the wound electrodes on the inside. You can actually see what this looks like as you unwind it. This is over 1 meter long in a typical 2170 cell. So it's quite a long winding process. And you can see the tab still there.
Okay.
And then,
das wusste ich auch noch nicht.
to explain what's actually going on here, we've identified we've got anode, cathode, separator, positive and negative terminal. Watch what happens as we, there we go, discharge the cell. Got lithium moving from anode to cathode, and then the reverse. When we charge the cell, anode moving from lithium moving from cathode to anode across the separator. This is the basic of what makes all lithium-ion batteries, whether they're no matter what the form factor is.
Okay.
And when we look at what's happened to date, at least in our products, we've moved from the 18650 form factor to the 2170 form factor through great collaboration with our partners, Panasonic, new partners like LG and CATL, and probably others in the future.
Yeah. Actually, so a slight note on why is the one called the 18650, although not on the slide, versus the 2170, is that the first two digits refer to the diameter, and the second two digits refer to the length. So that helps explain why are these weird. What's up with these weird numbers? But like nobody could explain to me why there was an extra zero. So I said, like, okay, well, we're deleting the zero that nobody can explain in future form factors. So that's why it's technically like the 18650 bizarrely, but going forward it's the 2170 because we just got rid of the extra zero because it's pointless.
And this was a evolutionary step, going from 1865 to 2170, bringing 50% more energy into the cell. But when we look to the ideal cell design, if we were to do it ourselves, we need to go beyond just what we're looking at in front of us and study the full spectrum of options. So as you can see, we kind of swept the key figures of merit, how much we can reduce the cost and how much vehicle range increases as we change the outer diameter of the cell. We found a sweet spot somewhere around 46 millimeters. But it's not just about a bigger form factor. Like anybody could make a bigger form factor.
Any fool could make a bigger form factor. We not any fool.
Yeah, exactly. There are problems as you make cells larger. In fact, supercharging and thermals in general become really challenging as you make bigger cells. And this was the challenge that our team set our sights
Sie
on
wollen
to
größere
overcome.
Zellen machen. Problem ist dann die Schnellladefähigkeit.
We came up with this tabless architecture that maybe you've heard about, that basically removes the thermal problem from the equation and allows us to go to the absolute lowest cost form factor
Hitzegeschichte haben sie
and the simplest
entfernt.
manufacturing process. And this is what we mean when we talk about tabless. It's kind of a beautiful thing.
That's what these T-shirts mean, but it's very esoteric. It's like nobody could figure it out. But
yeah, we basically took the existing foils, laser patterned them, and enabled dozens of connections into the active material through this shingled spiral you can see, with simpler manufacturing, fewer parts, 50 millimeter versus 250 millimeter electrical path length, which is how we get all the thermal benefits.
Yeah, this is important to appreciate. Like basically the distance that electron has to travel, is just much less. So you actually have a shorter path length in a large tabless cell than you have in the smaller cell with tabs. This is a big deal.
Tabs.
So even though the cell is bigger, it actually has more power. The power to weight ratio is actually better than the smaller cell with tabs. This is, again, like this is quite hard to do. So it's nobody's done it before. And it really took a tremendous amount of effort within Tesla engineering to figure out how do we make a freaking tabless cell and have it actually work and then connect that to the top cap. And it's there's a whole bunch of things that we're keeping a little secret sauce here that we're not telling everything. But
Sometimes what's elegant and simple is still hard, and it took us a lot of trials, but we're happy where we ended up.
Yeah, I mean, everything's simple in recollection. You know, after you simple, everything it's hard until it's discovered, and then it's simple. So anyway, but there's a lot of really cool things going on that enable tablets, and it's really, you know, due to a really great engineering team. Drew and the rest of the team have done amazing work in achieving this tablets construction. And it sounds, I think it may sort of sound a bit silly to some people, but this is like, if for people that really know cells, this is a massive breakthrough.
For cylindricals to be able to get rid of the tabs dramatically simplifies winding and coding.
Yeah.
And has an awesome thermal and performance benefit.
Yeah, that's just to be so.
Also die Hitze ist
like when the cell
ein kleines Problem. Also das haben sie gelöst bei diesem Aufbau der Batterie.
It has to keep stopping where all the tabs are.
Yes.
So you can't do continuous motion production if you have tabs. You have to keep stopping, and then there's a rate at which you can start and stop and accelerate again, and it really slows down the rate of production. And then sometimes you get the tabs wrong, and you also lose a little bit of active area. It's really a huge pain in the ass to have tabs from a production standpoint.
Yes. And so when we put it all together and go to our new 80 millimeter length, 4680, we call this new cell design, we get 5 times the energy with 6 times the power and enable 16% range increase, just form factor alone.
Yeah, so when these... yeah, it's pretty great.
Also praktisch auf dem gleichen Raum bekommt man 16% mehr Energie, wenn ich das richtig verstehe.
And just to clarify, that when we see these plus 16% or whatever the percentage range increases, these are the amounts due just to that particular innovation.
Yes.
So we'll list a whole bunch of innovations, and then when you add them up, you get a total improvement in energy density and cost. But these numbers are what refer to just this thing.
Yeah, and I want to stress, this is not just a concept or a rendering. We are starting to ramp up manufacturing of these cells at our pilot 10 gigawatt hour production facility just around the corner.
Yeah. So.
Also sie scheinen das jetzt aktuell dann an zu beginnen zu produzieren.
It's a video
Oder sie produzieren
some of what's
schon.
going on in the plant.
Krass. Guckt euch einmal die Fabrik an. Wahnsinn.
Now, I mean, to be clear, it will take about a year to reach the 10 gigawatt hour capacity. So this is important to appreciate. Like when you build a factory, there's a certain capacity that you design to, and then it takes some period of time to actually achieve that capacity. So I would say it's probably about a year before we get to the 10 gigawatt hour annualized rate with the pilot plant. And this is just a pilot plant. The actual production plants will be more on the order of
ist aber erstmal nur eine Pilotanlage,
200
sagt er
gigawatt
gerade.
hours, maybe more over time.
And thank you. But let's stack up everything we just saw at the cell level. So just the cell form factor change enables a 14% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction. Just that cell form factor change.
Also allein die
Now that you've been
Größenveränderung
teased on
reduziert den
this
Preis um
factory,
14%.
we're going to go on and walk step by step through that factory and discuss a series of innovations there. When thinking about the ideal cell factory, we have inspirations behind us in the paper and bottling industry, where from humble beginnings, over a century of innovation has enabled mass scale, continuous motion, unbelievably low manufacturing cost. And when we think about the lithium-ion industry, which is really only in its 3rd decade of high-volume production, it has so far to go to achieve similar scale and simplicity. And that was the inspiration that we set out to the team as we thought about how to marry cell design and manufacturing in the best possible factory.
Also sie meinen auch, dass die Entwicklung der Automatisierung noch am Anfang
Let's talk
steht
a little bit about what's
bei
in a cell
Batterien.
factory. First, there's an electrode process where the active materials are coated into films onto foils. Then those coated foils are wound in the winding process we just talked about, where if you do have tabs, you have to start and stop a lot. Then the jelly roll is assembled into the can, sealed, filled with electrolyte, and then sent to formation, where the cell is charged for the first time. and where the sort of the electrochemistry is set and the quality of the cell is verified. And we set out at every step of this process to try to take that inspiration we just showed and think about how we make those processes fundamentally better and more scalable. And one of the most important processes is where it all begins, the wet process of the electrode coating. And just to give you all a sense of scale, I'm going to walk through what's in that wet process. You've got mixing where the powders are mixed with either a water or a solvents for the cathode. That mix then goes into a large coat and dry oven where the slurry is coated onto the foil, huge ovens, tens of meters long, dried, and that solvent then has to be recovered. You can see the solvent recovery system. And then finally, the coated foil is compressed to the final density. And when you're looking at this, you're like, wow, that's a lot of equipment for one step, especially when you consider that little speck next to the coating oven is a person. This is serious iron involved in making batteries. Wouldn't it be great if we could skip that solvent step, which is one of those dig a ditch and then fill it kind of things where you put the solvent in and then take it out and recycle it, and just go straight to dry mix to coat? And that's what the dry process really is about. And in the most basic form, you can see it here on a bench top. Literally, powder into film. As simple as that.
I mean, it's hard, actually, just to be clear. So, if this was easy, everyone would do it. So it's not like dry coating electrode is actually easy.
Einfach in der Presse, kein Ofen mehr, oder was?
Appears to be a simple thing. And it's worth noting, like, we did acquire Maxwell as like a little over a year ago, I guess. And it's certainly a good company and everything, but the dry coating they had was like like sort of I would call proof of concept. Since the acquisition, we've actually revved the machine that does the dry coating 4 times. So we're in revision 4 post acquisition of the machine, and there's still a lot of work to do. So I would not say this is like completely in the bag. It's still a lot of work to do, and as you go from like benchtop to lab to pilot to volume production, there are actually major issues that you encounter at every level. It's not like you make something work on your bench and bingo, now you can make a bazillion of it.
Absolutely.
It's insanely difficult to scale up.
Also von der Werkbank bis zur großen Produktion
but
ist
if you do
schwierig.
scale it up, what you saw before becomes this.
Yeah.
So you can see the motivation. A 10 times reduction in footprint, a 10 times reduction in energy, and a massive
Zehnfache
reduction in
Reduzierung von Energie.
But as Elon was saying, simple is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I would like to not say that right now it's just totally working. It's close to working, but it's not even now at the pilot plant level.
100%.
It is close to working. Well, it's fair to say it does work, but with not a high yield.
Yeah.
So
we're still ironing out the kinks, but we've made tens of thousands of cells, thousands of kilometers of electrode. I mean, we are on the 4th generation of the equipment, so we've learned a lot along the way. Yeah. I mean, it is super demanding because every atom has its place if you want to deliver the energy density and the cycle life and the supercharging.
Yeah.
Sie müssen noch Arbeit reinpacken,
but it will be a
augenscheinlich.
lot of work along the way.
There's a clear path to success, but a ton of work between here and there.
Yeah.
So, but this is a really profound improvement. Again, for people that know battery manufacturing, this is gigantic. We'll probably be on machine revision 6 or 7 by the time we do large-scale production.
Also erst bei der 5. oder 6. Maschinenentwicklung, Verbesserung wird es funktionieren, denke ich.
Yeah, and beyond the electrode, we continue to innovate on every other process step. So let's talk a little bit about assembly, which is next. The key to a high-performing assembly line is accomplishing processes while in motion, continuous motion, and thinking of the line as a highway, max velocity down the highway, no start and stop, no city driving.
Exactly, no stoplights and traffic lights or anything. You want the highway.
I want the highway.
Yeah.
And together with our internal design team that makes this equipment and designs this equipment, we coupled thinking about how to make the best cell with thinking about how to make the best equipment so that we could accomplish the fastest parts per minute rates on all of these tools. And through all of that development, we were able to get to the point where we can implement assembly lines, one line, 20 gigawatt hours, 7 times increase in output per line. And when you're thinking about scalability and pure effort,
also das wird viel weniger Gigafactorien benötigen, als sie vorher dargestellt haben.
Yeah. So.
Aber es ist Zukunftsmusik. Es ist noch nicht umgesetzt.
Sort of think about like the sort of the fundamental physics of a factory or something. Like, I think it's actually quite a lot like the rocket equation, where you've got basically in the rocket equation you've got your exhaust velocity and then the log of the start to end masses. So it's basically saying, you know, how fast are things going and what percentage of the factory volume is doing useful work. And conveyance does not count as useful work. So
only the value-added steps.
Yeah, if you break the factory down into cubic meter sections, and say, or smaller, it could be like 1 liter sections, and say, is a majority of this volume doing useful work? You would be astounded at how bad most factories are. They're like maybe 2 or 3%, including our factory in Fremont. So I think it is possible to get to at least 10 times that volumetric efficiency. So more like 30% ish, maybe more. And be 10x better, which means the factory can be 10 times smaller. And then the other thing is how fast are things going through the factory. It's like speed and density. The faster you go, like if a factory that's moving at say twice the speed of another factory is equivalent to 2 factories basically. And the company that will be successful is the company that with 1 factory can accomplish what other companies take 2 or 3 or 4 factories to do. So this is what we're trying to do here is say, okay, how do we, with 1 factory, achieve what maybe 5 or even 10 factories would normally be required to achieve?
And the vertical integration with the machine design teams at Groman and Hybar and others
Fabrik zu
allows
erhöhen,
us to
und zwar massiv.
really accomplish that because we don't have all these edge conditions between one piece of equipment and another. We can design the entire machine to be 1 machine and remove all of these unnecessary steps.
Yeah, I mean, basically Tesla is aiming to be the best at manufacturing of any company on Earth. This is the thing that's actually most important in the long run.
Mein Gott, es geht nicht unter
just from a
Beste
company
auf der
standpoint
Welt.
and from
Das ist so wie mit meinem YouTube-Kanal.
achieving sustainability as fast as possible. But I think also for long-term competitiveness, eventually every car company will have long-range electric cars. Eventually every company will have autonomy. I think, but not every company will be great at manufacturing. Tesla will be absolutely head and shoulders above anyone else in manufacturing. That is our goal.
Manufacturing is hard, and hard problems are fun to solve. Okay, now let's talk about formation. In a typical cell factory, formation represents 25% of the investment. And what is formation? It's charging and discharging cells and verifying the quality of the cell. Turns out we've charged and discharged billions and billions of cells in our vehicles, so we know a thing or two about that. The typical formation setup is you charge and discharge each cell individually. In our car, we charge thousands of cells at once. And we took our principle and our power electronics, leveraging Powerwall, vehicle battery management systems, and others, to dramatically improve the formation equipment cost effectiveness and density. 86% reduction in formation investment, 75% reduction in footprint.
So.
Also um die Batterien zu veredeln, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, brauchen sie über 80% weniger Kosten, um da eine Anlage aufzubauen.
So, essentially, what this translates to, based on what we know today, is about a 75% reduction in the investment per kilowatt hour, or gigawatt hour. It's just basically 4 times better than the current state of the art to the best of our knowledge. And I think there's probably room to improve even beyond that.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah. So we're able to, from a volume standpoint, actually get what in a smaller form factor than Giga Nevada, we were able to get many times the cell output. So you can see, like, basically we can get a terawatt hour in less space than it took to make a gigawatt hour, 150 gigawatt hours. So this is pretty profound. You know, it's like I would actually not have thought this was possible several years ago, that we could actually get to terawatt-hour scale in less space than what we currently envision for doing 150 gigawatt hours.
Yes, simpler accelerates terawatt-hour scale, and that's what we need to do to accelerate our
Das ist
mission.
schon krass, wenn sie das wahr machen, mein lieber
as Elon
Scholli.
said, we're going to try to even improve on this
Da wird
as
eine
we
Tesla Powerwall
push towards our
zukünftig ein
goals,
Schnapp werden.
which are
Yeah. So this is just for this is just talking about Tesla internal cell production. As I tweeted out earlier, we will continue to use our cell suppliers, Panasonic and LG and CATL, and so this is 100 gigawatt hours supplemental to what we buy from suppliers, yeah, essentially this does like reduce our weighted average cost of a cell because but it allows us to make a lot more cars and a lot more stationary storage, and then long term we're expecting to make on the order of 3,000 gigawatt hours or 3 terawatt hours per year. I think we've got a good chance of achieving this actually before 2030.
Ververzwanzigfachung, ne, von dem, was sie in 2022 herstellen wollen.
When you look at the size of that factory on the previous page,
Nee,
it shows how
Verdreißigfachung.
enabling all of these advancements are in achieving a 3 terawatt hour goal by 2030.
In 8 Jahren verdreißigfachen.
Is all of that manufacturing innovation fantastic
Deshalb hat die
for
Aktie auch
enabling
so viel
scale.
Fantasie.
It's also an additional 18% reduction in dollar per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So we have a manufacturing system. We've got a cell design. What are the active materials we're going to put in that cell design? Let's talk about the anode first. Let's talk about silicon. Why is silicon awesome? It's awesome because it's the most abundant element in the Earth's crust after oxygen, which means it's everywhere. It's sand.
Yeah. Sand is silicon dioxide.
Yeah. And it happens to store 9 times more lithium than graphite, which is the typical anode material in lithium-ion batteries today. So why isn't everybody using it? The main reason is because the challenge with silicon is that it expands 4x when fully charged with lithium. And basically all of that expansion stress on the particles start cracking, they start electrically isolating, you lose capacity, the energy retention of the battery starts to fade, and it also gums up with a passivation layer that has to keep reforming as the particles expand.
Yeah, basically with silicon, the cookie crumbles and gets gooey. That's basically what happens.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
And current approaches to solve this, which exist, I mean, we have silicon in the cars that you're all in right now, are involved highly engineered, expensive materials in the scheme of things. Now, they're still great, and they enable some of the benefits of silicon. They just don't enable all of it, and they're not scalable enough. And you can see some of the things that maybe you've heard of, SiO, silicon with carbon, or silicon nanowires. I mean, that's kind of the space right now. What we're proposing is a step change in capability and a step change in cost. And what that really is to just go to the raw metallurgical silicon itself. Don't engineer the base metal. Just start with that and design for it to expand in how you think of the particle in the electrode design and how you code it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw this. Basically, $1 per kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Basically, if you use simple silicon, it's dramatically less than even the silicon that is currently used in the batteries that are made today, and you can use a lot more of it.
The anode would cost, with this silicon, and the anode costs $1.20 a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And how does it work? Start with raw metallurgical silicon, stabilize the surface with an elastic ion conducting polymer coating that is applied through a very scalable approach. No like chemical vapor deposition, no highly engineered high capex solutions, and then integrated into the electrode through a robust network formed out of a highly elastic binder. And in the end, by leveraging this silicon to its potential, we can increase the range of our vehicles by an additional 20%. Just this improvement.
Yeah, it gets cheaper and longer range.
Hat sich verdient, der Elon, dass wir den Fernseher noch mitlaufen lassen.
And when we take that anode cost reduction, we're looking at another 5% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction at the battery
5% sind 5%.
And there's more. let's talk about cathodes. What is a battery cathode? Cathodes are like bookshelves where the metal, you know, the nickel, the cobalt, the manganese, or aluminum is like the shelf, and the lithium is the book. And really, what sets apart these different metals is how many books of lithium they can fit on the shelves and how sturdy the shelves are. Cobalt is a...
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, like, it's tough to exactly figure out what the right analogy is to explain cathode and anode, but a bookshelf is probably a pretty good one, in the sense that you need a stable structure to contain the ions. So you want a structure that does not crumble or get gooey, or basically that holds its shape in both the cathode and the anode. As you're moving these ions back and forth, it needs to retain its structure. So if it doesn't retain its structure, then you lose cycle life and your battery capacity drops very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think people are always talking about, like, oh, what's the cathode going to be? Is it NCA or whatever? You know, the thing to consider is just fundamentally what the nickel, the metals are capable of, and that's what we have on the chart here. $1 per kilowatt hour cathode of just the metal, using just LME, you know, London Metal Exchange prices, versus the energy density of just the cathode. And you can see nickel is the cheapest and the highest energy density, and that's why increasing nickel is a goal of ours and really everybody's in the battery industry.
Okay.
But one
also
of the
energieintensiv oder am meisten Energie aufnehmen kann
very
scheinbar
stable
Nickel
bookshelf.
irgendwie, wenn ich das
And the
richtig jetzt
challenge with going
übersetzt
to
habe.
pure nickel is stabilizing that bookshelf with only nickel. And that's what we've been working on
Also
with our
Stabilisierung
high
vom
nickel
Lithium, was
cathode
auch immer.
development, which has 0 cobalt in it. Leveraging novel coatings and dopants, we can get a 15% reduction in cathode $1 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. Big deal.
Okay, an der Kathode werden 15% eingespart.
But
War
it's
das
not
jetzt
just
ohne
about
Kobalt?
nickel. You want to?
Yeah, sure. So in order to scale, we really need to make sure that we're not constrained by total nickel availability. I actually spoke with the CEOs of the biggest mining companies in the world and said, please make more nickel. It's very important. And so I think they are going to make more nickel. But there's also, I think we need to have a kind of a 3-tiered approach to batteries. So starting with iron, that's kind of like a medium range, and then nickel manganese as sort of a medium plus, intermediate, and then a high nickel for long range applications like Cybertruck and the semi. Because something like a semi truck, it's extremely important to have
Also auch
high energy density
unterschiedliche
in order to get long range.
Zusammensetzung von Batterien je nach Fahrzeugtyp.
Just to give sort of iron a bit more time, like although if you look at the watt-hours per kilogram at the cathode level of iron, it looks like nickel's twice as good. But when you fully considered at the pack level, everything else taken into account, nickel is about maybe 50 or 60% better than iron. So iron is a little better than it would seem when you look at it at the pack level fully considered. It's not as good as nickel. Nickel is like 50 to 60% better, but it's actually pretty good. And so, good
also
for stationary storage and for medium range applications where energy density is not paramount. And then, like I said, for intermediate, it's kind of a nickel manganese, and it's relatively straightforward to do a cathode that's 2/3 nickel, 1/3 manganese, which would then allow us to make 50% more cell volume with the same amount of nickel.
And with very little energy trade-off. I mean,
Yeah.
Just enough to have you still want to use 100% nickel for something like a semi-truck, but really not much of a sacrifice at all.
Yeah.
And, beyond the metals, because a lot of people spend time talking about the metals, actually the cathode process itself is a big target. 35% of the cathode $1 per kilowatt hour is just in transferring it into its final form.
Also haben sie auch wieder
So we see that as a big target, and we
Produktionsprozess im
decided
Auge
to take that on.
für die Kathode.
Here's a view of the traditional cathode process. Effectively, if you start at the left and you have the metal from the mine, the first thing that happens is the metal from the mine is changed into an intermediate thing called a metal sulfate, because that's just happened to be what chemists
Also Dirk
wanted a long time
Himmelmann
ago.
ist nicht begeistert von der,
And then when you're making the
der
cathode, you have to
Veranstaltung.
take this intermediate thing called metal sulfate, add chemicals, add a whole bunch of water, a whole bunch of stuff happens in the middle, and at the end, you get that little bit of cathode and a whole bunch of wastewater and byproducts.
Yeah, it's insanely complicated. If you look at the total, like if you're just like, it's a small world journey of I am a nickel atom. What happens to me? And it's crazy. Like you're going around the world 3 times. There's like the moral equivalent of like digging the ditch, filling the ditch, and digging the ditch again. It's total madness, basically. And these things just grew up as they're just kind of like legacy things that it's like how it was done before, and then they connected the dots, but really didn't think of the whole thing from like a first principle standpoint, saying how do we get from the nickel ore in the ground to the finished nickel product for a battery. And so we've looked at the entire value chain and said, how can we make this as simple as possible?
And that's what we're proposing here with our process. As you can see, a whole lot less is going on here. We get rid of the intermediate, metal, water, final product cathode, recirculate the water, no wastewater at all. And when you summarize all of that,
also Bernhard ärgert sich gerade, dass er die Aktie nicht geschortet hat. Also er geht davon aus, dass die Kurse sinken.
Zero wastewater. Much more scalable solution.
Cool. Yeah.
And then when you think about the fact that now we're actually just directly consuming the raw metal nickel powder, it dramatically simplifies the metal refining part of the whole process.
Ach so, wird ja gar nicht gehandelt
we can eliminate billions in battery-grade nickel intermediate production. It's not needed at all.
Yeah.
And we can also use that same process we showed on the previous page to directly consume the metal powder coming out of recycled electric vehicle and grid storage batteries. So this process enables both simpler mining and simpler recycling. And now that we have this process, obviously we're going to go and start building our own cathode facility in North America and leveraging all of the North American resources.
Oh, der Heini hat neue Informationen, die nutzen jetzt Kernnickel.
And just doing that, just localizing our cathode supply chain and production, we can reduce miles traveled by all the materials that end up in the cathode by 80%, which is huge for cost.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, cathode production would be part of the Tesla cell production plant. So it would just be, basically, raw materials coming from the mine, and from raw materials in the mine, out comes a battery.
And on that note, the way the lithium ends up in the cell is through the cathode, so then we should obviously on-site lithium conversion as well, which is what we will do using a new process that we're going to pioneer. That's a sulfate-free process again, skip the intermediate. 33% reduction in lithium cost, 100% electric facility co-located with the cathode plant.
Yeah.
Also Dirk ist enttäuscht, weil nichts Produktionsreifes dabei ist.
It's important to note that there is a massive amount of lithium on Earth.
Aber es ist ein Ausblick in das, was uns erwartet, und das ist ja doch eine hoffentlich rosige Zukunft. Günstigere Batterien, Dirk.
There's enough lithium in the United States to convert the entire United States fleet to electric. Like all the cars in the United States, there's like 300 million or something like that. Every vehicle in the United States can be converted to electric using only lithium that is available in the United States.
Discovered today.
What we already know exists.
People really haven't even been looking.
Yeah, people haven't been trying because it's just like widely available. So, but it is important to say, like, okay, what is the smartest way to take the ore and extract the lithium and do so in an environmentally friendly way? And we actually discovered again, looking at a sort of first principles physics standpoint, instead of just the way it's always been done, is we found that we can actually use table salt, sodium chloride, to basically extract the lithium from the ore. This is, nobody's done this before, to the best of my knowledge. Nobody's done this, and it's a sort of, all the elements are reusable. It's a very sustainable way of obtaining lithium, and we actually we actually got rights to a lithium clay deposit in Nevada.
Over 10,000 acres.
Over 10,000 acres. And then the nature of the mining is actually, I think, also very environmentally sensitive in that we sort of take a chunk of dirt out of the ground, or remove the lithium, and then put the chunk of dirt back where it was. So
Dirk, ein Vorschlag zur Güte. Weil es noch nicht reif ist, also marktreif, ich blase noch die restlichen 2 Teelichter unterm Elon-Schrein aus.
Put it in water, salt comes out with the lithium.
Ich denke, dass die Bilder allein reichen.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this, and there really is enough lithium in Nevada alone to electrify the entire U.S. fleet.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, just what's in Nevada. That's basically so much damn lithium on Earth. It's crazy. It's one of the most common elements on the planet.
And eventually, as we said at the beginning, when we get to this steady state 20 terawatt hours per year of production, we will transfer the entire non-renewable fleet of both power plants, home heating and battery and industry heating and vehicles to electric. And at that point, we have an awesome resource in those batteries to recycle to make new batteries. So we don't need to do any more mining at that point. And you can see why. Yeah. The difference in the value of the material coming back from the vehicle versus the ground, you'd always go to the vehicle. And we recycle 100% of our vehicle batteries today. And actually, we are starting our pilot full-scale recycling production at Gigafactory Reno next quarter to continue to develop this process as our recycling returns grow. Yeah, I mean, to date it's been done by third parties, but we think we can recycle the batteries more effectively, especially since we know our batteries, we're making the same battery as the thing we're recycling. So whereas like third-party recyclers have to consider batteries of all kinds. Yeah, and just to think about what this actually means, the recycling resource is always 10 or greater years delayed because batteries last a really long time. But eventually, it is the way that all resources will be made available. And that's why we're investing
ja,
in
viel
this
Zukunftsmusik, ne?
In Nevada.
Yeah. Long-term, new batteries will come from old batteries once the fleet reaches steady state.
Right. Okay, so we just talked about scaling cathode and recycling. All of the benefits that you just saw are added to this benefit of a 12% reduction in dollars per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level.
Aber erst
Almost
in der
at our half the
Zukunft.
cost goal, but there's one more section. Take it away, Elon.
So there's an architecture that we've been wanting to do at Tesla for a long time, and we finally figured it out. And I think it's the way that all electric cars in the future will ultimately be made. It's the right way to do things. So it starts with having a single piece casting, or a single piece casting for the front body and the rear body. And in order to do this, we commissioned the largest casting machine that has ever been made, and it's currently working just over the road at our Fremont plant. We have the it's pretty sweet.
Also es ist jetzt eine Presse, die große Teile macht.
Making the entire rear section of the car as a single
Das war
piece,
schon mal bekannt
high
gegeben
pressure
worden.
die-cast aluminum. And in order to do this, we actually had to develop our own alloy because we wanted a high-strength casting alloy that did not require coatings or heat treatment. This is a big deal for castings, especially with a large casting. If you heat treat it afterwards, it tends to deform. It kind of like does this like potato chip thing. So it's very hard to keep a large casting to have its shape. So in order to achieve this, there was no alloy that existed that could do this. So we developed our own alloy, a special alloy of aluminum that has high strength without heat treat and is very castable. So that's a great achievement of our materials team.
Eigenes
In fact, in
Aluminium
general,
entwickelt.
we've got a lot of advanced materials coming for Tesla, that new alloys and materials that have never existed before. So, so you're basically making the front and rear of the car as a single piece, and then that then interfaces to what we call the structural battery, where the battery for the first time will have dual use. The battery will both have the use as an energy device and as structure. This is absolutely the way things are done. In the early days of aircraft, they would carry the fuel tanks as cargo. So the fuel tanks actually were quite difficult to carry. They were like basically worse than cargo. You had to kind of bolt them down. It was very difficult. And then somebody said, "Hey, what if we just make the wing tanks? What if we just make the fuel tank in wing shape?" So all modern airplanes, the fuel tank, your wing is just a fuel tank in wing shape. This is absolutely the way to do it. And then the fuel tank serves as dual structure, and it's no longer cargo. It's fundamental to the structure of the aircraft. This was a major breakthrough. We're doing the same for cars. So
Also der Akkupack ist dann nicht mehr einfach nur eingesetzt in das Skateboard, sondern das Teil zur Stabilisierung des Skateboards.
Effectively, the non-cell portion of the battery has negative
Batterie, was auch immer.
So we save so much mass in the rest of the vehicle. We save more mass in the rest of the vehicle than the non-cell portion of the battery. So it's like, well, how do you really minimize the mass of a battery? Make it negative. Make the battery non-cell portion of the battery pack negative. It also allows us to pack the cells more densely because we do not have intermediate structure in the battery pack. So instead of having these supports and stabilizers and stringers and structural elements in the battery, we now have a lot more space in the battery because the pack itself is structural. And what we do is essentially, instead of having just a filler that is a flame retardant, which is currently what is in the 3NY battery packs, we have a filler that is a structural adhesive, as well as flame retardant. So it effectively glues the cells to the top and bottom sheet. And this allows you to do shear transfer between the upper and lower sheet. Just like if you have like a Formula One craft or like a racing boat, and you have carbon fiber face sheets and say aluminum honeycomb between them, this gives you incredible stiffness. And it's really the way that any super fast thing works is you create basically a honeycomb sandwich with two face sheets. This is actually even better than what aircraft do, because aircraft do not do this. They can't do this because fuel is liquid. So in our case, the batteries are solid. So we can actually use the steel shell case of the battery to transfer shear from the upper and lower face sheet, which makes for an incredibly stiff structure, even stiffer than a regular car.
Yeah.
In fact, if this was a convertible that had no upper structure, it would be stiffer than that convertible would be stiffer than a regular car. So this is it's just really really major.
Krass.
So it improves the mass efficiency of the battery, and then those castings are also quite important because you want to transfer load into the structural battery pack in a very smooth, continuous way, so you don't put arbitrary point loads into the battery. So you kind of have
you want to vergleicht, wo die Batteriepacks verteilt sind, aufgeteilt.
It also allows
Ganz
us
anderer
to
Ansatz.
use to move the cells closer to the center of the car, because we don't have the in the top one we've got that sort of all the supports and stuff. So the volumetric efficiency
Kim
of the structural pack is much better than a non-structural pack, and we actually bring the cells closer to the center. And because they're close to the center, it reduces the probability of a side impact potentially contacting the cells, because it has to go in any kind of side impact has to go further in order to reach the cells. It also improves what's called the polar moment of inertia, which is that you can think of like when there's ice skater arms out or arms in. Arms in, you rotate faster. So if you can bring things closer to the center, you reduce the polar moment of inertia, and that means the car maneuvers better. It just feels better. You don't know why, but it just feels more agile. So it's really cool. This is really major.
Hier sieht man, dass der Batteriepack Teil der
10%
Struktur
mass
ist.
reduction in the body of the car, 14% range increase, 370 fewer parts. So
hört sich gut an.
I mean, I really think that long term, in any cars that do not take this architecture will not be competitive.
And it's not just at the product level a better product, but in the factory, it's a massive simplification. You saw the part removal. It's casting machines. It's the structural battery pack. So we're looking at over 50% reduction in investment per gigawatt hour, 35% reduction in floor space, and we'll continue to improve that as we make the vehicle factory of the future.
Yeah, so it's major improvements on all fronts, from the cell all the way to the vehicle.
And in addition to the improvements we just said on enabling additional range and improving the structural performance of the vehicle, it is worth another 7% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction at the battery pack level, bringing our total reductions now to 56% dollars per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Also die Effizienzverbesserung des Autos, Energiedichte und so weiter und so fort, alles zusammen 56%. Je Kilowattstunde im Auto. Also auch weil man die Effizienz, also das, was man aus der Kilowattstunde rausholt, verbessert hat.
we're not just talking about
werden nicht in dem Maße
cost
günstiger, wenn ich
or
es richtig
range.
verstanden
We've
habe.
got to look at all the facets. So, range increase, we're unlocking up to 54% increase in range for our vehicles and energy density for our energy products. 56% reduction in dollars per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level, and a 69% reduction in investment per gigawatt hour, which is the true enabler when we talk back about how do we achieve this scale problem here.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty nice that investment per gigawatt hour reduction is 69%. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah, just happened to happen out that way. Yeah.
I mean, 0.420%, of course.
Aber wir reden ja aber von 2022,
yeah, so what this
2023.
enables us to do is achieve a new trajectory in the reduction of cell cost. And now, to be clear, it will take us probably a year to 18 months to start realizing these advantages, and probably to fully realize the advantages, probably it's about 3 years or thereabouts.
2023 voraussichtlich, dir kannst du es kaufen.
It's not like if we could do this instantly, we would. But it's really I think what this bodes for, it just really bodes well for the future, and means that the long-term scaling of Tesla and the sustainable energy products that we make will be massively increased. So, what tends to happen as companies get bigger is things tend to slow down. Actually, they're going to speed up.
And they have to speed up if we're going to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy.
Yeah. I mean, long-term, we want to try to replace about, at least 1% of the total vehicle fleet on Earth, which is about 2 billion vehicles. So long-term, we want to try to make about 20 million vehicles a year.
Alter Schwede, das ist ja mehr als Toyota. Das ist so viel wie Toyota und VW zusammen, oder?
But I think it's important to point out
20 Millionen Autos?
That when we talked about 3 terawatt hours by 2030, the problem is a 20 terawatt hour problem. So everybody needs to be accelerating their efforts to accomplish these objectives. Doesn't matter where you are in the value chain, there is a ton to do. You need to rethink from first principles how you do it so that you can scale to meet all of our objectives.
Yep.
And Elon?
Sure.
What does this mean?
What does this mean for our future products? We're confident that long-term we can design and manufacture a compelling $25,000 electric vehicle.
Elektroauto für $25.000, also 30.000 Euro.
This has always been our dream from the beginning of the company. I even wrote a blog piece about it because our first car was an expensive sports car, and then it was like slightly less expensive sedan, and then finally sort of a mass market premium, but like the Model 3 and Model Y. But it was always our goal to try to make an affordable electric car, and I think probably, like I said, about 3 years from now, we're confident we can make a very compelling $25,000 electric vehicle that's also fully autonomous.
And when you think about the $25,000 price point, you have to consider how much less expensive it is to own an electric vehicle. So actually, it becomes even more affordable at that $25,000 price point.
Yeah. So we have and extreme performance and range, and we should probably talk about the Model S Plaid. What about that?
Jetzt Model S Plaid, war es das jetzt mit dem Battery Day? Wahrscheinlich schon, oder? Über 1100 PS. Über 800 Kilometer Reichweite, also ein Lucid Air Konkurrent.
Yeah. So, we took the latest Plaid out to Laguna Seca on Sunday. It got a minute 30, and we think probably there's another 3 seconds or more to take off that time. So we're confident the Model S Plaid will achieve the best track time of any production vehicle ever, of any kind, two-door or otherwise. And you can order it now, and it's available basically end of next year. So, and now we'll move to Q&A.
Absolutely.
So we'll invite a few people on stage.
Okay, also es kommt kein Model 2, das dauert noch 3 Jahre, Leute. Es wird nichts anwählt. Tut mir leid. Bei mir sind es ja auch nur 500 Zuschauer, ne? Bei den anderen sind es über 3000.
Show you some more of the team and when we do Q&A,
ja,
you can like,
der Schmiedi, ich glaube, das hast du richtig verstanden. Model 2 nicht vor 2023, so habe ich es jetzt verstanden.
Actually, I don't know how we're getting the questions.
So wissen es kein Auto um $25.000 vor 2023.
Okay, well, you could just like, you can maybe get out of the car for 2 seconds and yell it at us. I don't know. Hey, how do we get into the questions?
Oh, they're mics. Okay, wait for the mic.
Oh, there are mics. Okay, great.
All right.
Okay, we'll definitely need to give people mics because otherwise there's no way. Sorry?
Stefan fragt, ob ich mir eine Model S Plate statt einem O5 bestellen soll.
We don't have a name for the $25,000 car yet.
Das ist ein bisschen zu teuer für mich. Da muss ich noch viel Merch verkaufen. Und mein Merch ist viel schöner als das, was Tesla da produziert. Ne? Hier. Ben. Eingetragene Marke.
Yes,
ne? Nur zur Info.
Manufacturing cells in Berlin. Yep.
Thermal management system? For homes.
Oh, you mean like the home HVAC? Yeah, that's a pet project that I'd love to get going on. I don't know, maybe we'll start working on that next year. Because I just think you could really make a way better home HVAC system that's really quiet and super efficient and super energy efficient and also has like a way better filter for particles and and it works very reliably. And we've already developed that for the car. Like, so the heat pump in the Model Y is really pretty spectacular. I mean, it's tiny, it's efficient, it has to last for 15 years. It's got to work in all kinds of conditions from the coldest winter to the hottest summer. So we've actually already done a massive amount of the work necessary for a really kick-ass home HVAC. And they can also like stack them. So if you want to say, depending upon the size of your house or whatever, how much you need, you can just basically stack them, and just have a very compelling, super efficient home HVAC. And then you can also communicate with the car, and it'll know when you're coming home. So it's like, oh, I don't need to keep the house cold all day. I just cool it down because I knew you were coming home. So the pack can communicate with the car and just like really dial it into when you actually need cooling and heating. It'd be great.
Fun product.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Hello. Hey guys, Eli here from Tesla Owners Club, My Tesla Adventure. Just quick question. So I'm a huge fan of car camping in my Tesla with my dream case, like my all-time favorite activity. Is it going to be possible to get climate control to the back of the Cybertruck? Because that would be the ultimate camping machine if we can get all-night climate control.
We'll try to do that. Thank you. I agree. That would be really cool. Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Hello. Long-time fan, Elon. Great guy. Just a question. How does the ICE industry look like for in the future?
Jetzt fragt wie die Verbrennerindustrie
well, I don't think there will be an ICE industry long term.
Es wird auf lange Sicht keine mehr geben.
I mean,
well,
I guess there might be like a few things that are like, it's a like curious thing. Like, I mean, there's still like some steam engines made somewhere, but like they're just basically sort of quirky collector's items. I mean, that will be the future of the internal combustion engine car.
Hi, Elon, to your left here in the white Model Y. Ryan McCaffrey from the Ride the Lightning Tesla podcast. Curious about Cybertruck. It was interesting to see where you had it in on the battery technology front. I'm sort of curious what you see for it in the production front. Is its volume, trucks are so popular in America, do you see its volume equaling the 3 or the Y in the future? And also, is the were you able to get Tesla is able to legally be sold in Texas as part of the Giga Texas deal?
Well, it's hard to say what the volume exactly would be for the Cybertruck. The orders are gigantic. So we have like, I don't know, well over 500,000 orders. I think maybe 600,000 or 600,000. That's a lot, basically. We stopped counting. So I think there's probably room for, I don't know, at least like a unit volume of like 250 to 300,000 a year, maybe more. Now we are designing the Cybertruck to meet the American spec, because if you try to design a car to meet the global, the superset of all global requirements, it basically, you can't make the Cybertruck. It's impossible. It really is designed for the American market, but this is the biggest market. Our North American market is the biggest market for pickup trucks by far, or large pickup trucks. And then I think for, we'll probably make an international version of the Cybertruck that'll be kind of smaller, kind of like a tight Wolverine package. It'll still be cooler, but it'll be smaller, because you just can't make a giant truck like that for most markets.
Okay, also es kommt ein kleinerer Cybertruck nach Deutschland oder nach Europa.
I don't know, I think probably we'll be able to sell directly in Texas. We do pretty well right now, but it is a bit weird not being able to actually conclude a transaction in Texas, but it's got to be like, a click on a server based in California. But weirdly, we can do leasing in Texas, but not selling. But hopefully that'll get cleared up in the future.
Yeah, Elon, great job with everything that you're doing. Thras Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki, your team's amazing. What I'm most curious about, these innovations are incredible, but on my drive up here, fully on autopilot for 400 miles, the entire state is brown. And this is ultimately about climate. Has there been some analysis done if all these things are achieved? What will its direct impact be on climate?
Well, I mean, I think it will have a very significant impact, because it will stop the CO2 ppm from growing as it is every year. And I mean, I should say, like, I try to view the whole climate thing for, as a science question as much as possible. Science, you always question your hypothesis. Is it true? Is it not true? Or assign a probability to a given hypothesis. And I should say that my original interest in electric vehicles predates the climate issue. Like, just when I was in high school, I thought, man, if we don't figure out electric cars, the whole economy is going to collapse when we run out of oil. So it's like, we better figure out electric cars and sustainable energy, or civilization is going to crumble. And then it was only kind of later that the significance of the climate risk became apparent. We were also able, using fracking and other types of technology, to access a lot more fossil fuels than previously thought, which is, helpful for lowering the cost of gasoline, but it's pretty bad for the total tonnage of CO2 that you could put in the atmosphere. It's now greatly beyond what people previously thought. So, but this is, as we were just going through in this presentation, it's like, it is a absolutely monumental task to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. I mean, the entire global economy is still, more than 99% dependent on, or roughly 99% dependent on fossil fuels. So although electric cars kind of get a lot of press right now, they're still, and there's still very few, as a percentage of the total global fleet, is practically nothing. I would say, yes, less than 1% of the global fleet is electric right now. Because of 2 billion cars and trucks and whatnot in use. So there's a massive amount of work ahead, just insane, like hard to comprehend how much work is ahead to get the new vehicle production to be sustainable.
Ich sehe ein paar Leute verabschieden sich Richtung Nacht. Kurz nächtlich, kann es verstehen. War jetzt nicht das große Ding, was man sich erhofft hat. Ja, hatte er aber schon auf Twitter auch angekündigt, dass es keine große Sensation wird.
A massive number of batteries. So
it's hard to measure in direct impact, but it's an experiment that we shouldn't be performing. And the sooner we can sort of end the experiment, the sooner we can kind of move on in a fully sustainable way that is actually lower cost. I mean, I think the thing that people haven't fully internalized is once we do get to the 25K car, the ownership cost of that car is incredibly lower than the prior car. And then on the solar side and wind, with the cost of solar and wind coming down and with batteries coming down with them, the actual cost of energy on the grid is going down. So we're sort of moving towards a sustainable lower cost future. So there's not really a sacrifice.
Yeah, that's true. It is a false dichotomy to say that it's either prosperity or sustainability. This is often used, by oil and gas to say like, oh, well, do you want people to lose their jobs? Do you want lower people's standards of living? Do you want to, make all these economic sacrifices, really, in order to have sustainability? And the reality, as Drew was saying, is that a sustainable energy is going to be lower cost, not higher cost, than fossil fuels.
So sieht's aus. Erneuerbare Energie ist günstiger als Verbrennerenergie.
Right here in front. First, thanks for having everyone. And as telling a friend, the one company to go work for that's going to have the biggest structural impact over the next 10 years at scale, it's probably Tesla. So kudos to everyone at Tesla for what they've done to this point and going forward. The two questions for you, as you've looked at the auto and the storage markets, I know you've talked about it at kind of 50-50 long term, but it seems like a lot of the battery cost curve achievements that you've presented today really make some of these storage opportunities much more feasible over the next 5 years. And so I guess the first part of the question is, does your calculus upon learning and improving these things change on that 50-50 mix, or is there a role where storage becomes bigger? And then the second part of the question, with all these huge grand visions, who's going to be with Tesla from a corporate perspective accomplishing these things? Obviously, Tesla can't do it alone, but when you look at some of the traditional auto industry or power, etc., I don't see a lot of other Teslas.
Well, actually, so there's a lot of companies in China that I think are doing great work with electric vehicles and also with stationary storage. Although we don't see that much in the US yet, but I think probably we will in the future. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're doing everything we can to encourage other companies to move to sustainable transport and also, make stationary storage batteries. We opened up, made our patents freely available.
Wasserstoffpropaganda hält die Trocktechnologie für disruptiv und meint, das ist die Zukunft und alle müssen es machen. Abwarten. Kann sein. Auf jeden Fall fällt dann auch ein Teil des CO2-Rucksacks weg. Ne? Das ist auch nicht unwichtig in der Argumentation gegen Verbrenner. Da wird ja immer noch viel Unsinn erzählt.
From a fundamental market size perspective, like we did the first ground up work to show the size of the market in terawatt hours, and they are roughly 50-50. 10 terawatt hours for transportation, 10 terawatt hours for the grid. And part of that is because the grid batteries, because when you're making a power plant, you're making a large investment, are 25-year assets or greater. If the grid batteries were 10-year kind of things, the grid market would be bigger, but because it's a longer duration asset, they're roughly the same size.
Thinking long term, is there any other segments that this new battery will be able to disrupt or electrify beyond just the initial Model 2 or cheaper sedan, like a boat, boring company loop, plane, boat?
Where are you, Gali?
Are you there? What's up? Right here.
Okay, great. It's like ventriloquism here, It's like we just get the sound out of the speaker and you can't tell where the heck it's coming from.
Yeah, any hints, or is the Model 2 such a big deal because it decreases the cost of transportation that is really the disruption? Or should we get hyped that this new cost curve opens up different vehicle categories like a high passenger density bus?
Super Gott, ich glaube, du hast das mit den 56% richtig verstanden, aber es ist halt Zukunftsmusik. Aber wenn es kommt, ist es natürlich super. Aber es ist nicht das, was die Leute sich erhofft haben. Die haben sich halt wieder Sensationen erhofft, die jetzt Gültigkeit haben.
Decent range, medium range aircraft. I think our batteries will, over time, start to approach the 400 watt-hours per kilogram range as well. Yeah, I mean, I think over time we'll see all modes of transport, with the ironic exception of rockets, transition to sustainability, or to electric, basically. On the rocket front, what we're planning to do is like about 80% of Starship is liquid oxygen, and we're actually already running a power line to be able to use wind power to create the liquid oxygen. So we're making, some decent progress on sustainability on the rocket front, but there's just no way to have an electric rocket, and it's important for the future of life and consciousness that we become a multi-planet species. So got to keep doing that.
So, ich muss mal kurz auf Toilette, ja? Ich bin gleich wieder da.
I have a question in regards to the lithium and nickel industries and the likely price spikes and shortages of high-grade materials the EV industry is likely to see if they don't act fast to address future supply. Tesla have clearly made the right moves that are necessary, but there's a real worry that the potential supply issues and price spikes will create a drag on the rest of the EV industry and therefore a drag on global EV adoption. What advice would you give to the EV and mining industries to quickly solve this looming hurdles? Because for a sustainable energy future, the spice must flow. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. The spice must flow. The new spice. I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I guess we can try to like basically overdo it in cell production and perhaps supply cells to others. But we do see the fundamental constraint as total cell production. That's why we're putting so much effort into making cells and kind of trying to reinvent every aspect of cell production from mining the ore to a complete battery pack because it's the fundamental constraint. We're not getting into the cell business because we, just for the hell of it. It's because it's the fundamental constraint. It's the thing that is the limiting factor for rapid growth. But we could certainly try to overdo it on cell production and perhaps
bin wieder da.
Although we are going at absolute top speed, so it's like it's not like we're holding it back. But I think like just making really efficient cars and that have low drag coefficient, low rolling resistance, efficient powertrains.
Habe ich was verpasst?
I mean that's kind of what we've done in order to make iron phosphate still have a good range. So the iron phosphate's lower energy density solution, but there's while there are some limitations on the total amount of nickel produced every year, there's really no limit on the iron. There's so much iron, it's ridiculous. So you can really scale up iron phosphate, at a raw materials basis faster, more than you can nickel. But yeah.
And just to point out, when we were walking through this presentation, we intentionally separated all the different aspects. The benefits of structural battery apply to a iron-based cathode in the same way they apply to a nickel-based cathode. Yeah. So you get longer range iron-based vehicles, and also the silicon benefit can apply to the iron-based vehicles as well. So we can do a lot to extend the range of an iron-based vehicle, which is why it's a key part of the roadmap going forward. And then I invited Turner up here to talk about what the mining industry can do.
Yeah. Diversification on the cathode side is obviously massive, and EVs are all about efficiency. And so for the EV industry, for the vehicle industry, we need to see powertrain efficiency really increase at all other companies matching Tesla powertrain efficiency so that everyone can have that diversified cathode approach where LFP is used in medium range and even really make a 300-mile vehicle with LFP. And really the goal that we were trying to present here was a model for vertical integration, strategic vertical integration that a lot of different people can do. What we need to see is vertical integration that shortens the process path from mine to cathode. And what we're doing here is novel, and we're trying to push the industry in that direction.
Ist natürlich richtig,
we're presenting a model here that anyone can follow.
Ist halt nichts
in fact, if there's anything that you guys want to comment on,
feel muss immer alles revolutionär sein? Weiß nicht.
I think the key is to be smart about your chemistry choices, your materials choices.
Talk louder.
Yeah, if you're smart about your materials choices, the spice will continue to flow. Yeah. You don't need to use the same kind everywhere. And if you
Wow, also so aus dem Profil, der Elon hat schon gut zugelegt.
To ramp up their production.
Yeah, and actually we had good calls. Like they're all motivated. I think that they've been sort of sitting back, being like, "Are you going to grow like crazy?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're going to grow like crazy." And then I think this indicates we're going to grow like crazy, and that's what the miners want to hear, and then they'll go make the investments.
Hello, Elon. This is Ben Limpick. I'm a musician. I was wondering, Does Tesla have any future plans to make partnerships with music companies like it has done with Tencent games or things like that for you guys to actually kind of expand your services for artists and other types of creative people to get involved in, you know, producing content that can be part of the Tesla ecosystem, or so other people that do creative things can get involved with you guys?
Well, we don't. We haven't really thought about that much, but I suppose it's probably something we should think about. We will be providing a title on Teslas. So, you know, we're providing, you know, more music sources that people can choose from, and just generally trying to improve the entertainment experience in the cars. And I think actually, as we go to a more autonomous future, the importance of entertainment and productivity will become greater and greater. I mean, to the degree that if you're just basically sitting in your car, the car is fully autonomous and driving somewhere, it's sort of like being you know, the car is essentially your chauffeur, and then the things that become important are, okay, well, let's have good entertainment, and you know, if you want to do some productivity stuff, then that actually starts to become much more important because you're no longer spending your attention driving the car. So it will be extremely important in the future.
Should we do some of the say.com?
Eine Petra, kurze Zusammenfassung. Es liegt alles in der Optimierung. Produktionsprozesse optimieren. Rohstoffe in den Akkus optimieren.
Yeah, the first one I think we already answered. Like if we have
Lieferketten optimieren und Struktur der Autos optimieren. Das sind die Neuigkeiten, aber nichts, was aktuell schon schlagend wird.
If we can make enough for other companies,
also jetzt erstmal keine Sensation, wo man sagt, wow.
We're trying to do, you know, the right thing for advancing the sustainable energy, whatever that is. So, vehicle to grid, we get asked that a lot. I think one of the things that's important to note is the vehicle to grid. It doesn't, unless you have a power cutoff. Like you need to cut off your main supply to the grid. Otherwise, if you lose the power in your house, you'll basically just backflow energy to the grid. So just having a reversal in the power flow does not actually keep the lights on. You need a whole separate system to cut off power to the grid. And I think there's also the case that people really want the freedom to be able to drive and to charge at their house. And it's obviously really problematic if you know, you get to morning and your car, instead of being charged, it discharged into the house, and then you're sort of, okay, now I can either drive or use the battery to power my house. I think it's actually going to be better for people's freedom of action to have a power wall and a car separate, and then it's you know, everything works.
Also ist kein Fan von Vehicle to Grid, weil das zur Netzstabilisierung ja schon beitragen könnte.
And local battery storage, so you basically become your own utility, and then the car is you know, can be charged also with solar. I think that's like the stuff that works. You know, that said, like we can certainly do vehicle to grid. I think we can basically enable that with software in Europe or something, right?
Yeah. We are future generations of power electronics. We will be able to do this more or less everywhere from a like energy market participation perspective. But yeah, from a backing up the house, and it just so happens that the way the North American connectors are on all the cars in North America, it doesn't matter whether it's the Tesla connector or the connector that the other vehicles have, doesn't actually support powering your home. It's unfortunate. So you'd need an additional hardware to do that. But yeah, in the future, all versions of our vehicles will be able to at least do bidirectional power flow for the purposes of energy market participation. But even for that, it's important to remember that your car isn't plugged in 24/7. So it's kind of an unpredictable resource for the grid. It'll have a value, but it's not the same as a stationary battery pack.
Yeah, honestly, a vehicle to grid sounds good, but I think actually has a much lower utility than people think. I think very few people would actually use vehicle to grid, and we actually had with the original Roadster, we had vehicle to grid capabilities. Nobody used it.
Yep.
Weil es denn erlaubt war, oder?
How do we find the engineers to do everything we're saying?
how do we find the engineers to do all these things? I guess we recruit a lot of engineers from all parts of the world. I think Tesla has a good reputation for doing exciting engineering, and that tends to attract a lot of the top engineers in the world, because they know that their efforts at Tesla will really serve the greater good, and we're super hardcore about engineering. Tesla is like first and foremost an engineering company. It's like hardcore engineering is what we do. Like the sheer amount of hardcore engineering done at Tesla is insane. And if you look at, say, there's various surveys done of engineering schools, where do you want to go? Like, what's your top choices? And actually, the top two choices last few years have been Tesla and SpaceX. So sometimes it's Tesla first, sometimes SpaceX first, but those are the two top ones.
Yeah, I mean, if you are motivated to solve some of these problems, which are the hardest problems in the world to solve, that really fundamentally enable the future we all need, please reach out.
Yeah, and
help us work on these problems.
Absolutely, and like you said, the battle is far from over. Less than 1% of the global automotive fleet has been converted to electric, and even maybe less than 0.1% of stationary storage has been done. So stationary storage has barely begun. Converting the global vehicle fleet to electric has barely begun. So there's still a massive amount of engineering work to be done at Tesla and other companies to accelerate this transition to sustainability.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
This is Jordan from Mark Asset Management. So you've talked about the importance of the factory, and you've mentioned the ground-up design process and a lot of the new things that you're going to be doing or started to do in Shanghai, Berlin, and Austin. Can you just maybe help us understand and quantify like how financially meaningful all of those improvements will be? And then given what you're trying to accomplish as a company, is it fair to assume that the vast majority of improvement will be given back to the customer in the form of lower prices?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly we will try to give back as much as possible to the customers. It's not like, it's not like Tesla's profitability is crazy high. Our average profitability for the last 4 quarters is like maybe 1%. So just to be clear, it's not like, we're minting money. Our valuation makes it seem like we are, but we're not. We do want to try to make the price as competitive as we can without like losing money. And if you lose money, then if you keep losing money, you'll just die. So we have to. This thing called profit is just like we need to bring in more money than we spend, otherwise we're dead.
But affordability is key to how we scale,
Yeah.
right? Like the demand goes nonlinear as you reduce the price of the car.
Yeah, it's important to sort of separate the difference between affordability and value for money, or desirability of the product. So, for a lot of people, they want to buy a Tesla, they simply don't have enough money. We could make the car infinitely desirable, but if somebody does not have enough money, they can't buy it. Sometimes, people, kind of forget this. It's like, it's like, people have to have enough money to buy the car, and just making a car super desirable but expensive does not mean they can afford it. So it's absolutely critical that we make cars that people can actually afford. Yeah. So, where should we go some of these things? Just scroll down or something. Oh.
When do you expect Tesla vehicles to beat ICE vehicles on initial purchase price? I think a way to answer that question is, in the classes of vehicles we sell today, we're already doing that.
Yeah, we're already pretty close. And then factoring in total cost of ownership, and the fact that electric vehicles require much less servicing, and are way cheaper to run. When you look at like total cost of ownership, and you can obviously lease a car. So if you just like lease a car or get a loan for a car, you've got your sort of monthly payment, and then your cost for either gasoline or electricity, and your cost of servicing. And the fully considered cost of an electric car is much less than a gasoline car of the same nominal purchase price. I mean, that said, and like maybe on the order of 3 years, when we can do a lower cost car, like a $25,000 car. I think that will be basically on par, maybe slightly better than a comparable gasoline car. So I think maybe it's on the order of 3 years-ish.
How have the technology advancements and increased vertical integration of battery manufacturing influenced your ability to improve the environmental and social impact of the supply chain? And I think, yeah.
I think we sort of have said that already.
Yeah.
Do you have some ability to scroll through this? Just scroll away.
We covered recycling.
Yeah. Well, just scroll until we've got stuff that we haven't covered.
We definitely covered that top one.
Yeah, a lot of these things we've already answered, I think.
Covered that.
Okay. Jetzt gucken sie nach irgendwelchen Posts und Fragen, die sie nicht beantwortet haben jetzt während des Streams.
I think we literally just
Also auch der
Oh, I saw a cathode durability question.
Elon ist der Meinung, dass die Autos, die sie jetzt haben, schon ziemlich dicht an den vergleichbaren Verbrennerfahrzeugen dran ist. Kann man so sehen, glaube ich. Das Model 3 ist schon mit einem 3er BMW halbwegs vergleichbar, wenn man gleiche Leistungswerte
Is this something you're going to leave the
annimmt.
upstream supply chain to solve? No, I think we tried to answer that directly. I mean, we really are looking at not just what happens in the cathode facility, but like currently outside the cathode facility that should really be inside, and removing processes that shouldn't have been there in the first place, and the use of reagents that are just costly and not necessary, and removing a bunch of wastewater from the process.
Guys, is there anything you want to add?
Jesus-Films, man braucht Sitzfleisch, ne? Noch sind wir am gucken. Aber es wird jetzt schon ein bisschen langatmig, das Ganze, ne? Also richtig, die Sensation ist nicht dabei.
Sure. I just want to reiterate the fact that this is a massive problem.
Massive problem.
And it seems like Tesla's on its way and ahead, but we need everybody's help because it's everybody's planet, and we're not going to get to 20 terawatt-hours by ourselves. So please think about this carefully as it affects everybody. So let's get on it.
Yeah. And obviously, if you care about solving sustainability and doing hardcore engineering, definitely come work at Tesla.
Yeah, we went through a couple of the manufacturing improvements, and it kind of looks easy when you put together a nice slide deck, but the challenges are like this. It's super challenging when you take materials out of the process, when you integrate processes together. You have to do a lot of things at once.
Uwe, du hast nichts Großartiges verpasst.
Like this immense
Kannst du morgen alles nachlesen. Keine Sensationen heute.
And so, like, to appreciate that, like,
der Mann hat das gleiche Problem wie ich.
We need, like, the best
Der hat auch hinten eine Glatze.
Awesome. I just want to shout out also
der da links ist das.
All of that team watching. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, you absolutely kicked ass putting this together. And yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tesla team. Totally agree.
Yeah, that's it. Like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Rodney Westmoreland, managing the construction here at Tesla. What I would like to say is, one, shout out to the team. The team has been working effortlessly. A very, very tough project here for 24 hours a day, it seems like, around the clock to have this complete. The thing that sets us apart from a lot of other construction, we have a construction company here. The thing that sets us apart is that we're integrated in the manufacturing process. So every detail that comes from Drew's mouth is directly implicated into the system that we're building. That way, what would typically take 3 or 4 months to create a specification, our design team is working right with the manufacturing team to allow us to speed that process up tremendously. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a important part of the vertically integrated
wer
approach
jetzt dazu kommt und sich fragt, was heute vorgestellt wurde, es sind Optimierungen an den verwendeten Materialien, also Rohstoffen, Optimierung am Fertigungsprozess, Optimierung an der Größe und an den Lieferketten und auch letzten Endes an der Fahrzeugstruktur. Da wird Batterie zukünftig ein Teil der tragenden Struktur. Also die Zelle an sich, die wird verklebt. Tauschen ist dann wahrscheinlich schwer.
Yeah, you're before Drew, but who's keeping track?
But I'm really stoked at what the team's been able to accomplish over the last, short period of time, about a year. It's been really an incredible transformation. I mean, hopefully what we've shown you inspires you to join us or join somebody else in the effort. I couldn't think of a greater, more intelligent, more hardworking team to be working on with this problem.
Kreandi, ich habe gar nichts erwartet. Ich stelle nur fest, was heute Inhalt des Livestreams war. Was kritisierst du an dieser Feststellung von mir?
Manufacturing improvements is like the accelerator. So, like, you think about the execution that Rodney talked about in terms of how fast we've been able to put together this factory, which is amazing and something that's been really incredible to be a part of.
Ich gebe jetzt nochmal O-Saft in das Glas, in dem ich gerade noch Bier hatte. Wir mischen hier also.
And that's what we're really focused on. Elon talks about it all the time, that really going and improving that system is what will enable us to get to the scale and the cost that we need.
Rest O-Saft.
And then the other point that I would make is on the recruiting side, like, it doesn't matter if you know about batteries. If you come from any industry, you can do something fantastic in the work that we're doing. We talk to people from industries that you wouldn't imagine. Like, I talked to a guy who makes golf balls, and he has stuff which is really impactful for what we're doing. So, if you're in any industry and you want to be, impactful here, like, come join us. It'd be great.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Tony. I've been working in lithium and cathode materials for almost 23 years now, and this is the most growth I've seen in a company. I've been here a little over a year and a half. We're hiring amazing people that are allowing us to leverage technology that most of the industry is struggling to achieve. So to answer the question, how are we going to do this? We are really advancing the materials manufacturing for cathodes and for lithium beyond what has been.
Kimi fragt, was morgen für ein Event kommt. Morgen kommt der Event, ich falle aus dem Bett, gehe ins Bad und dann frühstücke ich erstmal.
Yeah, my name's Turner. Work closely with the team.
Ja,
worked a lot with
reines,
everyone here.
Unveredeltes
on the
Bier.
upstream materials side, it's really important that everyone understand that this growth is coming.
Wieso warst du bei einem anderen Stream?
We are going to make all of these batteries, and everyone needs to grow with us. The entire supply chain needs to grow with us. And if you have an idea that simplifies anything in the supply chain, come talk to us, come work with us, and let's do it.
Any existing specification is wrong. Any existing manufacturing method is wrong. Process equipment, it's wrong. It's just a question of how wrong.
Yes.
Quote
Exactly.
Elon Musk.
Yes, exactly. We're wrong. Just a question of how wrong. Just try to be less wrong.
So tell us how we're wrong and how we could do it better so that we can accelerate and improve as fast as possible.
Nee, 11 Uhr wahrscheinlich
well,
nur Spanischer. Hartes Leben eines
Thank you everyone
YouTubers.
for coming. I hope you liked the presentation. Very exciting future ahead. We're going to work our damnedest to transition the world to sustainable energy as quickly as possible. And your support and help is key to that success. So thanks again. Super appreciated. And look forward to the next
Danke,
event.
Elon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Komm, dann machen wir nochmal gerade. Ah ne, er läuft ja hinten. Er läuft ja hinten, der Elon. So, das war's wohl, oder? Das heißt, wir haben, keine echten Sensationen gesehen, aber war auch jetzt nicht zu erwarten. Mal gucken. Ja, der Stream scheint zu Ende zu sein. Ja, das war's. Ich gebe mal ein Mag ich, obwohl es hier nicht angezeigt wird. Und schalte mal auf groß, denn wir haben es geschafft, Leute. Wir sind durch. Wir haben alles gehört, was zu hören war. Es sind eigentlich Verbesserungen, die man sowieso, würde ich jetzt mal sagen, erwarten würde. Also, dass so ein Unternehmen sich weiterentwickelt und auch die Technologie verbessert. Bin mal gespannt, ob Tesla da wirklich jetzt einen großen Vorsprung hat mit dieser neuen Technologie. Also, dass man nicht mehr diese Zellen rollt, scheinbar Kathode und Anode oder wie auch immer das Zeug heißt. Ihr wisst ja, ich habe technisch nichts drauf, sondern dass man da einzelne Platten zusammenfügt. Und damit auch größere Akkus mit hoher Ladefähigkeit und ohne Hitzeprobleme gestalten kann. Dann wird die Zelle zukünftig zur Struktur des Fahrzeugs gehören, also das Ganze stabilisieren. Sie wollen andere Materialien verwenden, also den Nickelanteil erhöhen, in günstigen Autos den Eisenanteil. Was war's noch? Was war's denn noch? Gut, die Lieferketten sind wichtig, deshalb viele Gigafactories verteilt auf der Welt und auch in Deutschland unter anderem ja. Sonst fällt mir jetzt gar nichts mehr weiter ein. Wisst ihr noch, was sonst noch war? Habe ich jetzt was vergessen? Ich finde allein das Format und die Art der Kommunikation sensationell. Welcher Hersteller macht sowas? Vielleicht Polestar, sonst keiner. Moin, habe ich was verpasst. Der Klaus kommt jetzt um 1:21 Uhr hier reingeplatzt in den Chat und fragt, Moin, hab ich was verpasst? Unfassbar, Klaus. Aber gut, ich sag dazu nichts. So, Roadster kostenlos für alle, schreibt der Uwe. Nein, nur für die Influencer, die viele Referral-Codes an den Mann gebracht haben. Ja, aber ich denke mal, geschafft. Ich sehe da keinen Vorsprung. Andere werden da auch was in der Tasche haben, denke ich. Tesla forscht das sicherlich nicht als einziger an besseren Zellen. Also ich sehe es ehrlich gesagt ein bisschen wie Analog Nexus. Ich glaube nicht, dass Tesla hier als einziger neue Wege geht. Ich meine, man muss ja auch mal ehrlich sein, die Zellen werden ja woanders gefertigt. Also CATL, LG, wen haben wir noch? Samsung SDI, die bauen, glaube ich, auch Zellen. BYD natürlich. Also es gibt so viele große Unternehmen, die jetzt schon viele Zellen fertigen und die arbeiten natürlich auch an Optimierungen. Also ich glaube ehrlich gesagt auch nicht, dass Tesla hier einen riesen Vorsprung hat. Also weiß ich nicht. Vielleicht, ich habe ja keine Ahnung davon, nochmal um das festzuhalten. Wenn, dann bin ich Stammtisch-Experte, der sich schon 2 Corona extra reingepfiffen hat. Aber ich glaube tatsächlich, dass die anderen ja auch nicht pennen. Und die haben auch fähige Leute. Auch in China, was da läuft. Kobalt ist raus, sagt der Wuffel, ist noch eine wichtige Nachricht. Mein Fazit vom Olfi jetzt also, das war nicht der große Knall. Sie arbeiten an Batterien mit mehr Kapazität, aber mehr als eine Reichweiten von mehr als 15% zurzeit nicht machbar. Wohl Ersatz des Kobalt durch Nickel. Plate S, sagt er, XXX. Neues Auto 2023, genau. Also wir hoffen darauf, dass das $25.000 Auto in 2023 ja auf dem Markt hoffentlich kommt im besten Fall, aber zumindest mal vorgestellt wird. Trockene Produktion, ja genau, also der Fertigungsprozess wird angepasst. Man braucht also lang nicht mehr so viel Energie, um so eine Zelle herzustellen. Die haben da so eine Presse gezeigt. Der Vorgang wird wohl so sein, dass das Lithium oder was auch immer an Rohstoffen auf eine Folie, auf eine Trägerfolie aufgebracht werden muss, dass das jetzt nicht mehr durch Hitze entsteht, sondern durch Druck, wenn ich es richtig verstanden habe. Aber bitte Leute, ne, ihr wisst, ich bin kein Ingenieur oder sowas. Ich schwätze immer nur schlau und das reduziert wohl massivst auch den Energieeinsatz und erfordert auch kleinere Fabriken, um trotzdem dann noch einen größeren Output an Zellen zu haben. Breaking, Opel baut den Manta wieder, schreibt der Uwe. Wo hast denn das her, Uwe? Michael, danke, dass du es online gestellt hast. Was meinst du, Norbert? Das war ja eh online, also die ganze, war ja eh auf YouTube zu sehen, also nichts Spezielles. Das Beste war der tolle Pausenburlesstanz von Chantal. Danke, Michi, gerne Hans-Peter. Der Hans-Peter scheint psychedelische Drogen zu verwenden, denn er hat etwas gesehen, was de facto nicht stattgefunden hat, weil, um das nochmal klarzustellen, Burlesque-Tanz gibt es immer nur sonntags abends nach der Auflösung des Gewinnspiels in den Live-Band-Spätshoppen. Zu anderen Livestreams ist die Chantal nicht da und tanzt auch nicht. Wenn ihr also Burlesque-Tanz, also wirklich ganz geschmackvoll, künstlerisch, nicht niveaulos, also jetzt nicht irgendwie auf Sex und auf Erotik, also Erotik schon, aber nicht auf Sex ausgelegt, sondern wirklich ganz künstlerisch wertvoll, könnte auch in einer Oper, in einem ehrwürdigen Theater aufgeführt werden. Wenn ihr das sehen wollt, bitte sonntags abends einschauen und nach der Auflösung des Gewinnspielrätsels tanzt dann die Chantal immer einen Burlesque-Tanz. Okay, haben wir das auch geklärt, damit es keine Irrtümer gibt. Nico schreibt, mein Fazit, derzeit nichts kaufen. Ganz falsches Fazit, Nico, da widerspreche ich dir total. Weil da kannst du auch sagen, ich kaufe mir heute keinen Computer, weil morgen gibt es einen schnelleren und der heute verkauft wird, ist morgen günstiger. Dann kannst du ewig warten, weil die Verbesserungen werden immer weitergehen. Es wird immer besser, immer bessere Produkte, Batterien und Autos geben. Kauf jetzt, hab jetzt Spaß. Wer weiß, was in einem Jahr ist. Genieß das Leben jetzt, wenn du es dir leisten kannst, dann investier jetzt in Sachen, die du für sinnvoll hältst. Das als Ratschlag von einem alten Mann, der aber trotzdem als Sparbrötchen immer noch ziemlich viel Geld auch versucht, in die Sparbüchse zu tun. Mist, jetzt habe ich schon den Corsa E gekauft. 3 Jahre warten wäre besser gewesen. Nein, wer macht denn sowas? Du hast alles richtig gemacht. Mit dem Corsa E hast du garantiert ganz viel Spaß und so soll es sein. Danke, Micha. Schlappencamp sollte Standard werden. Du meinst in jedem Stream? Also auch von anderen YouTubern, da bin ich voll dafür, aber die müssen dann Lizenzgebühr an mich abführen, weil wer hat's erfunden? Die B.E.N haben sie erfunden. Nordisch by Nature verabschiedet sich, Guts Nächtle, wir werden jetzt auch Schluss machen. Ich denke, wir haben alle mitgehört und auch das eine oder andere Neue dazugelernt. Coaster Coach schreibt, die haben aber immerhin jetzt schon alles in die Wege geleitet, um auf ihre 3 Terawattstunden zu kommen. Coaster Couch, denkst du, die anderen pennen? Die wollen auch Geld verdienen. Es entstehen auch in Ostdeutschland Batteriezellproduktionsstätten. Also CATL baut ja da was, glaube ich, in Thüringen sogar. Das ist weltweit eine Industrie, die jetzt in einem wahnsinnigen Tempo wächst. Und da ist Tesla nicht alleine. Also deshalb, man wird sehen. Vielleicht wird Tesla alle überholen. Aber im Moment sehe ich das noch nicht so. Kimi sagt noch, wenn What's to the Wheels nicht wieder Druck ausübt, wegen dem hat sich die Chantal nämlich am Sonntag verletzt und konnte nicht auftreten. Aber sonst tanzt sie immer. Das kann ich euch an dieser Stelle ganz fest versprechen. So, also Leute, wir sind durch. Wir haben 1:30. Die meisten von euch müssen morgen früh raus, um zu arbeiten. Und ich muss ja auch um 11 Uhr aufstehen, um mir dann Mittagessen zu machen. Also auch ich habe ein hartes Leben und muss an dieser Stelle dann auch den Stream langsam beenden. Ich bedanke mich, dass ihr hier zugeschaut habt. Ich weiß, viel konnte ich nicht beitragen. Ich wollte aber auch nicht immer dazwischen quatschen. Ihr wollt ja auch hören, was die Tesla-Jungs zu sagen haben. Ich wünsche euch an dieser Stelle ein gutes Nächtle. Und ich hoffe, ihr schaltet am Sonntagabend wieder ein. Dann tanzt nämlich die Chantal. Und es kommen natürlich auch ganz viele News zu Elektromobilität. Und am Montag bin ich dann voraussichtlich in Dresden zusammen mit dem Mickey. Der holt seinen ID3 ab. Vielleicht machen wir da auch ein bisschen einen Livestream, muss ich mal gucken. Aber ein Video dazu wird es auf jeden Fall geben. Und ich werde natürlich den ID3 wieder runterreden, so wie ich das immer mache und wie mir das immer wieder von diversen Zuschauern nachgesagt wird. Okay, Leute. Ach, der Harry hat Urlaub. Na, da hast du aber Glück gehabt. Gut. Ich wünsche euch eine gute Nacht. Sagt schön mit Ö. Nochmal der Mönch mit dem Brett vom Kopf. So. Und wir schalten ab. Bis Sonntagabend. Tschö. Oh, jetzt ab ins Bett.